I always wanted to serve on a jury.
I'm really super excited to be here, so I really appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Creating this whole trial daddy.
I want to give a big shout out to the 13th Jury Podcast and Brandy.
Yeah, I applaud you guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
That every time you run into Phil Barber, you should reach for it.
And then I just looked to the jury, and it's sort of like, look.
I was in the eye of the storm, and you guys were watching the storm.
Hey, if your porter works, come pop in and say, hey, want some coffee?
You are a ray of sunshine, and I love what you've done with your YouTube channel.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. It is good to see y'all. I am not feeling great today, so we're gonna see. We're gonna see how far we make it. I have got our only fan up. I am excited to see what they say, but I am just not feeling great. So, if it doesn't get much better, then we'll call it a day, and I can send y'all to watch the rest with somebody else, but I am just not feeling so hot. Today is going to be a big day, though. The Voir is going to be exciting because keep in mind, we're not going to be in front of the jury. So what makes that awesome is that we'll be able to hear everything that they say without them really limiting a lot of it, because this is what the defense is wanting to bring in, but without the jury in there, so they're going to be able to say more of what they're wanting to get in without hearing a bunch of Lally objections, and then the judge will, of course, Auntie Bev will decide what's going to be allowed in and what's not. But I'm curious, especially after how yesterday went, and how bad yesterday was. I'm curious to see what their experts say. I had thought all along that there was going to be questions that were answered by the time we got to the experts with the reconstruction stuff. I thought that if there was a way that they could explain this to us and make us understand it, that it would be a little bit, I'm not going to say I expected it to close the gap of reasonable doubt, but I just expected it to get me at least closer to it, and it didn't. Yesterday was a shit show, and so the expert who explained things yesterday still did, like, I heard that and it still doesn't make sense to me. So I'm curious to hear what their experts are going to say today to see if that makes, if their version makes more sense. Because if it does, that's going to be really bad for the jury. Well, not really bad for the jury. It's going to be really bad for the prosecution. So it would be interesting. Mildred, thank you for the super chat. Yesterday was the least expert day in the history of jurisprudence. It really was. It was so bad. It was so bad. I was not feeling well at the end of yesterday. So, I really wanted to see some other people's reactions to it, but I didn't even get a chance to do that last night. So I can't wait to see. I wanted to watch Lawyer You Know, and I wanted to watch Runkle and see their reactions on it. And I didn't get a chance to do that. So if y'all watch Runkle or Lawyer You Know, tell me in chat about their reactions, because I haven't got to watch it yet. It kicked y'all out. See, I started using Streamlabs again because it wasn't kicking people out, and now it's kicking people out again. I keep having problems with StreamYard, and then I swap over, and then I have problems with Streamlabs again. I still can't believe they haven't talked about his injuries, and that the accident reconstructionist didn't tie the injuries to the accident. That's the hardest part for me. That's the hardest part for me. I thought that if they could somehow make me understand how that's possible, that it could help close that gap on reasonable doubt for me, and it's just not. I watched Lawyer You Know. That was wonderful. Oh, Regina Crawford, 1 whole year. 1 whole year. Happy 1 year anniversary. Today is for Lally's benefit only, to be prepared in front of the jury. I'll enjoy a peek into the defense, though. Yeah, I mean, but even giving him insight into what they're going to say is not going to. I mean, he's had plenty of time to be prepared for other things, and it just wasn't. He just never is. He just never is. And it's like, and you get those people who are like, I see people that are saying, like, the people who are very, like, have been convicting Karen and burning her at the stake since before the trial even started. Those are the only people that say that Lally are doing good. And I think that the only reason that they say that is because they really want to believe it. And they want to convince everybody else of it. Because there's nobody who actually can look at this case objectively and tell me that Lally's doing a good job. I'm sorry, but you can't. Like, I don't believe it. And if you say you are, that is totally fine. That is your opinion. My opinion is that that's BS. He's doing a terrible job. He's doing a terrible job. I feel bad for, Jackie, I feel bad for the accident reconstruction guy too. Probably should have refused to testify and needs more training. That's the thing, is you cannot get up on this stand and testify to things as an expert that you are not prepared for. And that's not that guy's fault. I did feel really bad. I said this last night to somebody. I woke up and I can't even remember what time it was. I was sitting there responding to some stuff, and I said that last night. I feel bad because I don't like it. You know, that guy was unprepared for this. And is that his fault? No. Prosecution knew better than to put somebody like that up here. And you only know what you know, and you can only say what you've been trained on. And if you're told, like, you know, to figure something out, you can try to do it to the best of your ability. But if you're not trained for it, and you're going up a defense attorney who is, that's not his fault. That's the fault of the prosecution. They should have known better than to throw that guy to the wolves. Lawyer, you know, was also Helena J. Yeah, I thought Trooper Paul was going to throw up. I felt so bad for him. He got sideswiped. Yeah, I agree. I felt bad for him too. Lori, you know, was also very underwhelmed by the text messages. Said it sounded more like any long-term couple typical spat. Yeah, me too. It was, and the people who are saying, oh, this shows her motive, or this shows that she was planning her cover story. That is not how I see it at all. Not even a little bit. I'm going to tell you right now, Karen Reed is a smart woman. You can think she's guilty, you can think she's innocent, you can be unsure, but she's a smart woman. It does not make a lick of sense to me for her to be like, you know what? I killed him, so let me start leaving him angry, you know, messages, like telling him, you know, your kids are effing alone, and like all this stuff. That's not what that looks like to me. Like saying, oh, I'm gone in Mansfield. If that was the case, she wouldn't have woke up, you know, after she passed out. She wouldn't have woke up and been panicking like, oh my God, where is he? To me, it makes, and this is just to me, it makes her freaking out when she woke up more plausible, because that was always one of the things that I thought was kind of weird, like how, you know, how she woke up and she was like so panicked that he didn't come home. But if she's texting him saying, your kids are here alone, like I'm gone, and she had said that she knows that he would never, and I mean other people testified to it too, that he would never leave them alone overnight, to me that made more sense about why she was panicking, because she's like, oh, I told him that I was gone, that he needed to come home, and he didn't. So I think it gives that story a little bit more plausibility. I think that the text about you know, her leaving and being gone was just a way to, you know, like drunk fight, whatever, like trying to make him come home thinking that he's there partying without her or whatever. And then I know there's like the people that are like, oh, that's, you know, that makes her crazy. Okay. All right, Judge Judy, sit down and shut up. Like, that doesn't make her crazy. That makes her human. We've all been in, you know, situations where we've done things that, you know, that we're maybe not proud of, like in arguments. Like, I don't know anybody who's ever had every single argument that you've ever been in that you've handled it perfectly. So, like, that's the thing, is like, if you're not looking at this objectively, you're going to look at it and get what you want out of it. So if you're not being objective, you're going to look at that and be like, oh, that shows this and this and this, and you're going to make things out of it that you're not, because you're looking for confirmation for, you know, the story that you believe. But that's not what that is, and there's nothing about that looks like that at all to me. So that's just my opinion, which, contrary to what Twitter says I'm allowed to have. Reconstruction guy needs some more education. Yeah, I agree with that. Good morning. Smart goes out the window when drunk as snot. Yeah. I think that it would be the worst cover up ever to leave him angry voicemails and stuff if you know that like to me it shows that she knows he's not dead. Now if she hit him accidentally, or if she didn't know she hit him or whatever, then maybe I could still maybe see them making that one work, like the vehicular manslaughter thing. But I think second degree went out the window at this point. We'll see what else they come up with. I completely agree with you, Brandy. I was wondering about why she was so panicked when she woke up. Yeah, do you feel like that made it make more sense for you too? Like, because if that was the first time I was like, oh, okay, well now I can kind of understand a little bit why she was panicking. Because if she told him, I'm not there, are we going to hear the angry voicemail soon? I guess we're going to have to, because they're supposed to be wrapping up their case. Like either, I think they said maybe Friday. We got the 2 medical examiners that are left to testify. And that's it, I think. Good morning. Good morning. I'm okay-ish. I'm okay-ish. I'm not feeling good. So we're gonna see. I've got it muted just because that background like buzz is driving me crazy. The voicemails are going to be cringy. I feel bad for Karen. Yeah, the voicemails are going to be cringy. I feel bad for John's family during that, because imagine like hearing, because we know, like we've heard some, they've quoted some of it in the court documents, so we know that like she says like I hate you and calls him a pervert and stuff because she thinks he's cheating on her. And so I feel bad for the O'Keefes having to sit through and listen to her yell at him, especially because they believe that she's guilty. So, thank you, Hades. Thank you. Second degree is overcharging. I agree. I thought maybe the second degree got upgraded to that when we saw the censor, because now they're trying to say, like, if that was them saying, like, there's censors on here, so she would have known that she was hitting him, or she would have known that she did hit him and left him or whatever. But I feel like going into this case, you want to prosecute a case that you know that you can win. Otherwise, you're wasting all this time and going through all this pain for, to not prove something beyond a reasonable doubt. So, the text messages show me that she loved him and she was trying to make it work, but no matter what she did, he didn't approve. I see her being hurt and sometimes angry. Words come from hurt. Yeah, and I mean, like, if they had gotten to where they're starting to fight more, I thought it was interesting too, the stuff about, I know that one of the big arguments that I've seen is people saying that she wouldn't leave him alone, that he was trying to leave her and he wouldn't leave her alone, but then there's like the messages about like, okay, so like he's asking her like, you're coming, right? Because I'm riding with Mike, so I'm gonna need you to come, like if you say you're coming, because I'm gonna need a ride and stuff. And then telling her like, okay, you're getting a plumber when I can fix that and stuff like that. So to me it shows like, yeah, they're going through some stuff, but it doesn't, those were not the text messages of somebody who is trying to get away from her. You know, and I think, didn't he say something about, or one of them said something about her staying there till Monday? And the text about, hey, Jessica for Justice. I was just lurking on your morning crime wrap up for a little bit before I went live. Yeah, he said he assumed that she was going to stay for the weekend. But even, you know, the talk that they were having about, you know, he apologized for whatever it was that got out of hand with them, the fight that they had gotten into about Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. You know, he said he apologized for how he treated her. But you could tell that she was really hurt by it. And then, so I thought that was interesting. Not to say anything bad about him. Like, this is just typical couple arguing when you've been arguing a lot and you got to a point where you're just not getting along the way that you were. And it sounded like they were both frustrated with it. And I know what that's like when, you know, you love someone but you're so frustrated that you can't get along. So thank you, Team Brittany. Thank you. I appreciate it. I messaged Melanie little. I love her. She's so sweet. I messaged her and I was like, I can see why you got off Twitter, because it is awful. Just awful. People are awful. I haven't been on there too much. I've set my notifications to where I only get notifications for certain things. It's awful. Her talking about trying so hard and it never being enough. I felt that in my bones. Yeah, I mean, you can hear that there was exhaustion and frustration, and then her asking him if there's somebody else. It seemed like I mean, she seems to really believe that there's somebody else, because it looks like she's trying to find a reason why things have been bad. Like if he's focused on somebody else. Oh great, what's happening to our feed? This one does that sometimes. Here, let me look at the other one. I can't handle the... Now it stops. What are you doing? Little miss. Look, she brought her food over here. Why do you gotta bring it over here to eat it? You're gonna make a mess. And your hair's a mess. Come here. Girl, you messy. Get it together. Let me fix it. Woke up with bedhead, didn't brush her hair this morning. She just brought her whole little tray of food over here. I know, you're a good girl. You're a good girl. Lucy wanted to stay in bed today too. Hey, publicly buzzed. What's up, buddy? There you go, now you're pretty. Now you're pretty. Say hi to your friends. Say hi to your friends. Say hi. Say hi to your friends. You're so very pretty. Okay. Let's see if this feed is still cutting in and out. Maybe not. Okay. I'm hoping that today's not a long day. Then I can go lay down. I'll be fine. We'll see how long it goes. See Lucy down here in the corner? She brought her little food cup. I see you. I see you. You're very pretty. She brought her little food cup. Not me explaining how I know Brandy from 5 Minutes to My Girlfriend. Yeah, I feel like crap today. I came this close to just staying in bed. So close. Who was arrested? Wait, I missed it. Who was arrested last night? Krista Johnson gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Krista Johnson. Thank you, thank you. Welcome to our new members. You look good in green. They have not been in yet, no. Justin Timberlake was arrested. I'll go bail him out. What happened? This is what happens when I sleep through everything. Take a shot at anything you got. Beat it with liquor. Don't really do that. That would make for an interesting Voir dire day. That would make for a really interesting Voir dire day. Be like, woo, experts. You are muted. Sounds like they're about to come on. Anytime they unmute, that's when we know it's coming. I'll go bail him out. Same girl, same. I have, you know, it's funny. I don't drink a whole lot. So I have a friend of mine came and stayed with me last year, and we bought a bottle of Fireball, and he came and stayed this year, like almost exactly a year later, and the rest of the bottle is still in there. And he's like, and his beer is still, like, I have like a mini fridge over there on my wine bar and stuff, like the rest of his beer is still in there, and he's like, does beer go bad? I was like, I don't know. But like and then this time he left a bottle of Crown, and it'll be over there until he comes back next year too, I'm sure. So I've got plenty of stuff because I don't drink, and every time somebody comes to the beach to visit, then they end up leaving it. Fireball's good for being sick, right? My kid just texted me and said they're wheeling some badass arcade machine to the game room. RJ and LC gives a membership. Thank you so much. Thank you. I went to Judy V. Judy V, welcome to the green side. Taste the biscuit. I see that. Look, Wild Child, I had that in my head. Yeah, you want to hear what do you want to hear the whole song? Hold on, I gotta find it. I had that stuck in my head all weekend long. And then I just randomly be like, and then I went out with my friend Saturday night and had the most random night ever. So a bird bit her forehead. Just most random night ever. And so ridiculous. Taste the biscuit. But I'd be randomly, I just start randomly singing Taste the Biscuit. It makes no sense.
Taste the biscuit, taste the goodness of the biscuit. Taste the honey sauce, taste the goodness of the biscuit with the honey sauce. Don't get that honey sauce on me, I don't like the way it tastes with my chicken wings. Taste the biscuit, taste the goodness of the biscuit. Taste the butter spread, taste the goodness of the biscuit with the butter spread. To get your butter spread all on me, I don't like the way it mixes with my mac and cheese. Cause when you're at KFC, you got that special sauce to stir my curiosity. Just give me a 5-piece meal, oh what a deal. A big old box, it's all for me. You know I'll take coleslaw on the side. I could tell you wanted to try the potato wedges.
That's the best, when he goes hard on that Casio. Slaps.
Taste the biscuit, taste the goodness of the biscuit. Taste the honey sauce, taste the goodness of the biscuit with the honey sauce. Get your honey sauce on me, I don't like the way it mixes with my chicken wings. get none of that honey sauce on me. I don't like the way it tastes on my chicken wings. Take us out, Moose.
That's Moose.
Taste the biscuit.
It's literally, there's nothing better. He goes hard on that Casio solo. Like, that Casio, that was like 7-year-old me with my little... I'm just saying. Take us out, Moose. Toasters and Moose are like, that's... I feel like they're my... Like my soul ties. And it really does make you crave KFC. I need to get them on. I need to get them on the show. I need to... Wait. Take us out, Moose. Like, there's just nothing. There's literally nothing better. Oh, there's a 10-year reunion.
It's the Toasters and Moose 10-year anniversary of the 25th anniversary of the 2009 Toasters and Moose Rock Your Body Home 25-year anniversary tour special.
The goodness of the biscuit.
Live from the clubhouse at the Hacienda Mobile Home Park in Pleasanton, California.
Of the biscuit with the honey sauce.
Not the
Look
blanket.
at that honey sauce on me. I don't like the way it tastes with my chicken wings. You know, it's really great to be back here. And so great that Jan is hosting this space for us, and thank you for cleaning the bathrooms, really. A lot of people come up to us and say, "You're kind of sad, aren't you?" And my response is always the same. You're like a cardboard box. No wheels. But when you got a special skill like us, you can't hold it back. I gotta sing, Moose gotta play, and now that we're older,
Moose
has this like special skill. He can number 1 and number 2 at the same time. Yeah, no, I'm kidding about that.
Too far, Toasters. Too far. Too far, Toasters.
Don't get none of that honey sauce on me. Dun, 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 dun.
Taste the biscuit.
That was, of course, Taste the Biscuit, made famous by Billy Ray Cyrus, but originally written by us. And now, if you're hungry, we have some burgers provided by...
Wait a minute. Billy Ray Cyrus has entered the chat. When did Billy Ray Cyrus make this famous? I've never seen it with anybody but Toasters and Moose. Biscuit and Wing Fund. Join the band. Thank you. Thank you. But also... What? Now we'll never know. Now we'll never know. Somebody remind me to Google that. Where did Billy Ray Cyrus come into to this?
Thank you. Maybe see the footnote section.
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
Not Billy.
All right. Good morning, counsel. Ms. Reed. Are all of the witnesses here, Mr. Jackson?
They are, Your Honor.
I'd like to hear from Dr. Russell first. Are you both prepared to?
Your Honor, I'm so sorry. I could not hear you.
I would like to hear from Dr. Russell first. Is that her name?
Russell. Dr. Russell, yes. The order would be, I would propose based on scheduling Dr. Russell, Dr. Wolfe, Dr. Renschler.
Okay, then that's good, because that's the order I'd prefer. So, all right. Do you have a CV for her? Good morning. Morning, Tori. Do you have a CV I could look at for her, please?
Let me see if I got it in my notebook.
Get that butter sauce on me.
Yes, I do.
He did it on a time.
And she has not written a report?
She's not.
All right, let's bring her in, please.
Your Honor, before we get started, can I get an understanding? You started to say it at sidebar the other day, and you said you wanted to put that off to get to the witnesses. But I need a little bit of an understanding of what the court's expectations are. My understanding of voir dire, which this seems a little unusual in terms of the timing of it, is
The understanding of the voir dire is this is for the Commonwealth's motion to exclude this testimony. All right, that's what we're here for, the Rule 14 violation.
is that the same with Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Renschler?
Well, I thought that would help both of you. The Commonwealth has nothing on that, and you say you haven't been able to even talk to them at all about this case.
That's correct.
So I want to find out if they have any credible, competent evidence to put forward. So we'll have a voir dire on them as well. But
So
for
that-
Dr. Russell, what we're doing here today is there's
Thank you,
an
Public
alleged
Buzz.
well, let's just there appears to me to be a violation of the reciprocal discovery obligations of defense counsel regarding Dr. Russell. So let's hear from her today to see what the appropriate remedy is for this violation.
So my intention is to ask her so I have, the court understands my sort of guardrails. My intention is to ask her what her qualifications are, which is that's the basis for a voir dire. And that's where I'm going to stop. I'm not intending to ask her what her opinions are, conclusions. I'm going to ask her if she's come to opinions and conclusions, but I don't want to have to examine her concerning her full opinions, her full conclusions, what she's based those conclusions on. It's unfair. We've provided the defense the prosecution, everything that we need to provide to them in terms of disclosure. They've got the equivalent of a report. They've got a summary of what she's going to testify to.
When was that provided? My order was 1 week from the start of trial, right?
Well, we didn't, Your Honor, in fairness, they didn't even finish their discovery 1 week before the start of trial.
Thank you.
So it's a little unfair for us
Thank
to be
you.
1 week from the filing of the certificate of compliance.
Well, I don't know when I can't remember. My co-counsel indicates it was the day before trial.
Okay.
So during the course of, look, trial is a dynamic thing. During the course of the trial, I did not know who Dr. Marie Russell was at the time that they filed their certificate of compliance. We then attempted to and did give them the reciprocal discovery that we were obligated to do after they filed their certificate of compliance.
When?
Within 3 days of that. We had been giving them information prior to that, but at least within 3 days of that. We've continued, so the record's clear, we've continued to get additional discovery from the Commonwealth in notices of discovery throughout the trial. They have not finished. In fact, during the trial, they interviewed Jen McCabe, apparently, had a full interview with her. Lieutenant Tully took a report, dated the report, and then they held on to that report until after she testified. The interview, the report, and the completion of the report were all done before her testimony.
Do you need to call her again?
Your Honor, that's not my, and I think the court understands, that's not my point. My point is not I need to call Jennifer McCabe back. I've done the damage that needs to be done on Jennifer McCabe. The point is...
I'm sorry, I missed that. You've what?
I've done the damage that needed to be done on Jennifer McCabe. I don't need to call her back. The point is that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The Commonwealth doesn't get to stand in the position of piecemealing and feeding us information, reports, discovery throughout the course of the trial. And by the way, when we then got seminal information about an expert that we did not know about, never met, never heard of, within 3 days of that, we provide everything that we have about that witness to the Commonwealth. They can't then turn around and say, oh, well, it's all the defense's fault. So we want to have a voir dire, which means the euphemism for that voir dire is we want to have two bites at the apple.
Okay.
We want to be able to completely cross-examine her, then go back to our expert, and if she testifies, cross-examine her again after consulting with our expert. That's 2 bites at the apple, and that's not fair. If the court wants to hear whether or not Dr. Marie Russell is qualified to testify about the arm injuries, that, I believe, is the parameters, the proper parameters of the voir dire, and that's what I'm prepared to do today. But I wasn't planning on getting into the substance of her testimony because that's been provided. And I don't think Mr. Lally should be able to get into the substance of her testimony because he knows what the substance is because, like I said, that's been provided.
All right, so I disagree. I'm going to hear from the Commonwealth on this. Is it Ms. McLaughlin or Mr. Lally?
Your Honor, just briefly in regard to what counsel was referencing with Ms. McCabe, it was not a full interview by Lieutenant Tully. It was and I don't have it on me at this moment, but I can give the court a copy of that report. But essentially it was Ms. McCabe met with Lieutenant Tully, looked at some video, and was asked a single question. That report wasn't available. I didn't have it until after Ms. McCabe testified, but it was given to counsel prior to Lieutenant Tully testifying, and there were no questions asked of Lieutenant Tully in regard to that. My issue, and you know, I wasn't asking for a voir dire as it proposed to, as it relates to Dr. Russell, is that we first heard of Dr. Russell on May 21st, which was, I think, 6 weeks into trial.
Right, so that's what I asked, and you told me it was 3 days after the beginning of trial, Mr. Jackson.
Your Honor, I said this at sidebar the other day, and I just said it again today. I let the Commonwealth and the court know about Dr. Marie Russell 3 days after I learned about her, which was the 17th of May. I had never, I think it was the 17th of May. I had never heard of her. I didn't know who she was. We made contact. I determined that she would be useful for the jury in terms of specifically the injuries to John O'Keefe's arm. I then had one conversation with her, then immediately, within 3 days of that, turned that information over to the prosecution. So I didn't say that I gave this over 3 days into trial. That's not what I said.
All right, but you were ordered to do it. Ms. Gianetti, what was the date? You had 1 week from when?
The day before trial. So it would have been, I believe, April 15th. So what we knew as of that date, we were required to turn over.
All right, I need to take a quick recess.
What? All right.
God, again already? I'm so annoyed. Ugh. I'm so annoyed. I don't feel good enough to deal with that crap.
Please be seated. Go back.
Oh, that was quick. Oops. Oh, he's the one who always says exactly what the jury is thinking, but it's always very pro-prosecution. It's always very different than what everybody else in the courtroom says the jury is doing. I don't trust anybody that tells me what the jury is thinking.
Jim, the Commonwealth's motion, the Commonwealth's renewed motion first. Never mind, Jim.
Never mind, Jim.
Paper 360.
I've got it, yeah. All right, so the Commonwealth has moved that I exclude the testimony of Dr. Russell. based on a violation of the reciprocal discovery obligations of the defense. So I do find that there is a violation of the reciprocal discovery obligations of Rule 14. And I'm quoting from the notes, the importance of this, the reporter's notes to the old rule, and as you all know, we're in the process of updating that rule, but the very integrity of the judicial system and public confidence in the system depend on full disclosure of all the facts within the framework of the rules of evidence. To ensure that justice is done, it is imperative to the function of courts that compulsory process be available for the production of evidence needed either by the prosecution or the defense. So, what we're here to do today is decide a remedy for this violation. And that's why we're having a voir dire. I am not prohibiting the Commonwealth from anything on their examination of witness Mr. Jackson. The alternative is she doesn't testify. So the Commonwealth has not received the appropriate discovery from this witness. So we're going to have a voir dire, and they can ask her anything that they think they need to ask her. So those are the parameters of this morning.
As long as I know the guardrails, that's fine. I just to close the loop on the record, my understanding, and this Little can probably speak to this more intelligently than I can, but during the middle of trial, there was a witness that we had never heard of, we did not know and didn't have a report for.
Who is that?
Dr. Fowler, F-A-L-L-E-R.
Okay.
If the court remembers, he's buried in the middle of about 75 witnesses, so he testified to alcohol levels, et cetera, and protocols at which institution? At Good Samaritan. And we didn't have that information either. We didn't throw a fit. They said we were going to provide this information in a timely fashion. As soon as we know that we're going to call him, he's got to be on our witness list. We didn't know one way or the other what he was going to say. We didn't have a report, and we went on about our business. That's what we were doing as well. And by the way, I would note that the notes and the report under Rule 14 require disclosure of information you have. I just don't want the court to think that we were sitting on information that we didn't turn over.
I'm not saying that. It's just, this isn't as if it were something that the Commonwealth brought up and you needed to scramble. This is entirely of the defense position. So,
I understand.
All right, so that's the big difference. So why don't you go ahead and call her?
Okay. May I be excused to call her?
Yes.
I just don't have the patience for them today.
Medium and then tuck your legs in. Let's go. Doctor, I'm just going to ask that you be mindful to step up. I ask that you remain standing and face the person this wall.
Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear the evidence given in the court, the case now and here, and true the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Let's take the stand.
Morning.
All right, so this is Dr. Russell. Dr. Murray.
I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up. Speak right into that microphone, doctor, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes. Marie Russell, R-U-S-S-E-L-L.
And I'm going to echo what the court just indicated. The air conditioners are on, so please keep your voice as elevated as possible and maneuver the microphone however you need to, okay?
Okay.
Dr. Russell, what do you do for a living?
I am a retired emergency physician and forensic pathologist.
And tell me what education you have, going all the way back to the beginning, that qualifies you as an emergency physician and former pathologist before you retired.
Okay, well, I've had about at least 16 years of formal education beyond high school. Initially, I started at MIT, where I did my pre-med courses. I had always wanted to be a physician. And so I went to MIT for a year, took pre-med courses. And then I had an unusual life event in that my mother came down with cancer, and she subsequently passed away. During the time away, so I took some time off from school. During that period of time, I decided to explore another interest of mine, which was law enforcement. And so I took some courses in law enforcement, and I became a full-time police officer here in Massachusetts.
What years were you at MIT?
That was 1972 to 1974.
Did you go to the police academy?
I did. Once I became a police officer here in Massachusetts, I attended the Boston Police Academy where I graduated.
What year was that?
That was in 1977.
During the course of your training as a police officer, did you have any specialized training in hit and run and accidents and investigations?
Yes, I did.
And which agency did you work for as a sworn peace officer?
I worked for the city of Malden full-time for 7 years.
That would be from 1977 to 1984, approximately?
Correct.
During that time, did you continue your education in any way?
I did. I took as many courses as I could from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council, which included a several-day course in hit-and-run accident investigation. I took courses in forensic photography and numerous other things. And then, and I also, at the same time, continued to go to college. And I did that part-time, where I eventually got a bachelor's degree of science in psychology with highest honors.
What institution was that from?
That was from Northeastern University.
And that was a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology?
I think it was a Bachelor of Science.
Got it. Subsequent to your Bachelor of Science degree from Northeastern, did you also advance your education further, formally?
Subsequent to. So yes, so I decided that I did want to pursue a medical career. And so I then attended medical school, University of Massachusetts Medical School, full-time for 4 years.
Did you ultimately get a degree, an MD degree from UMass?
Yes, a Doctor of Medicine degree in 1987.
So you were there from 1983 to 1987, is that right?
That is correct.
And did you do a residency?
I did. I did 2 residencies, actually. Most people do 1, but I did 2. I did. My first residency was a combined internship and residency for 4 years, and I did that in Los Angeles at Los Angeles County Medical Center, which is a very big trauma center, and what I would consider the Bellevue of the West Coast. Very busy.
You say that just because of the volume at USC Medical Center?
That is correct.
Is it one of the busiest medical trauma centers in the country?
Yes.
You were there from 1987 to 1991, is that right?
Yes, I did my ER internship and residency during those years. Yes, there.
During that time, were you seeing patients?
Oh, yes.
You were treating patients?
Lots of them.
You were attending to patients?
I was a trainee, so I was seeing as many patients as we could. There was always a waiting room full of patients, and so I saw many patients during that time period.
You indicated a second residency. Tell me about that.
Okay, so I still realized I had an interest in forensics, and so I decided that I wanted to also train in forensic pathology. So I did a second residency in anatomic pathology, 2 years, followed by forensic pathology fellowship at the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office for 2 years.
And the years, if that's 4 years, that would be from 1991 to 1995, approximately?
That is correct.
Tell me what your experience was as a fellow at the Los Angeles Coroner's Office, Los Angeles County Coroner's Office.
Yes, well, it also was a very busy coroner's office, And so every day there would be cases. I probably did at least 2 cases a day, most days, and plus conferences and educational opportunities. But the interesting thing about being a fellow is they try to give you a wide assortment of cases. So, for instance, I not only saw numerous victims of gunshot violence and stabbings, but I saw numerous victims of motor vehicle accidents and natural death, overdoses. And then if there was an unusual case, it usually went to the fellow, because the fellow was also being supervised. So,
Did any of those unusual cases, and we'll get more into this in just a second, but did any of those unusual cases include animal attacks?
Yes.
Did you become a professor, an educator at any point?
Yes. So during my 29 years at LA County Hospital, during the last 25 of those, I was a assistant professor or an instructor, but mostly an assistant professor. And what that meant is that I was responsible for overseeing the care that was provided by the interns and residents. So when a patient would come in into the hospital, the emergency room, they were oftentimes usually seen by the intern or resident, and then I would go and subsequently see that patient also. So, and that was in addition to my own cases. So I'd see my cases and their cases.
And that was at LAUSC, correct?
That is correct. And
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
LAUSC, for those of us who are not necessarily familiar with it, is that associated with the University of Southern California Medical Center?
Yes.
That's the school, in other words, the site.
Yes, so it stands for Los Angeles County / University of Southern California Medical Center.
And that's where you were an assistant professor for the majority of the rest of your career?
Correct.
Were you also an assistant or an adjunct professor at Cal State Los Angeles?
Yes.
Okay. For how long were you an adjunct professor there?
I believe that was 4 or 5 years. And I taught criminalistics, forensic medicine there.
As an attending physician in the ER, in other words, a supervising physician in the ER, can you tell us what some of your duties and responsibilities included, especially as it pertains to trauma? And then I'll get more specific in just a second.
Okay. Well, so I would oversee the care of all the patients that came in during a particular shift. And that would include medical patients and trauma patients. And as I mentioned, it was a very busy trauma center. So we had lots of trauma patients, including the types of violence I described earlier that I saw at the coroner's office, but lots of motor vehicle accident victims because there was a highway there right nearby. There were a couple of highways, so a wide variety of accidents.
Did your supervision include assessing, diagnosing, and treating patients?
Correct.
In terms of the middle part of that, diagnosis, was part of your job to determine the cause of injuries or to at least assess the cause of injuries?
Yes, and I took that on a little bit more because I was interested in the forensics aspect of the injuries.
The forensic aspect?
Yes.
Okay. During your time at LAUSC, even after you left the Los Angeles coroner's office as a fellow, did you continue to stay in contact with the coroner's office and have a relationship with the coroner's office as a supervising physician?
I continued to stay in contact with the coroner's office, and I used to attend their conferences as often as I could, not as a supervising physician, but as a physician and a graduate of their program.
During your tenure at LAUSC, did you ever become the director of any programs at LAUSC?
Yes.
Does that include the director of Center for Life Support Training?
Yes.
What years was that, if you remember?
I don't remember that.
The early 2000s, late 90s?
Yes, that sounds about right.
Okay.
And we would conduct lots of courses, including trauma, life support courses.
Did LAUSC incorporate a quality improvement program?
Yes.
Within their institution?
Yes.
Did you become a director of that as well?
Yes.
So you were director of Center for Life Support Training and director of LAUSC Medical Center quality improvement, is that right?
The quality improvement was for the emergency department.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Tori.
And did you also become the director for jail medical services?
Yes.
What is the association between LAUSC and the very, very expansive jail system in Los Angeles County?
So LA County Hospital was unique in that they, many, many years ago, developed a jail, what they called a jail ward, which was a combined inpatient, outpatient, and ER. So there was a dedicated jail ER. And that has been in existence for probably about 70 years now. And patients that were placed under arrest by either LA sheriffs, LAPD, California Highway Patrol, or any of the municipal agencies in the area, and I think there were about 70 or more municipal agencies, could bring their patients to the LA County jail ward where the patients would get treatment.
Ultimately, you became the director of that entire program, correct?
Yes.
Did you also work with the State Medical Board of California in any capacity?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
For about 7 years, I worked part-time for the California Medical Board as a physician assigned to one of their enforcement teams. And I did that 1 day a week, and I did my other job at the county hospital the other 40 hours a week.
So you didn't take off time from your duties as an ER physician, as an emergency physician. This was in addition to you being an emergency physician.
That is correct.
Did you hold the title of Chief Medical Executive for the California State Prison System, specifically at Corcoran?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So I retired from LA County Hospital, and I went on to move on to the the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
And what year was that? Did you make that transition?
So 2018 is when I started for the state prison system.
Okay.
And I worked there for 5 years as director of their medical service in Corcoran.
I'm sorry. So for that prison, within that system, you were the chief medical executive for the entire agency, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
For the entire prison.
Understood. Are you board certified in emergency medicine?
Yes.
Are you a member of the National Association of Medical Examiners?
Yes.
Are you a member of the American Academy of Forensic Science?
Yes.
Do you have any publications in the area? And I'm going to be very specific because you've been relatively widely published. Is that right?
Some people would say yes, some people would say no.
More than a couple of publications.
Correct.
And peer-reviewed journals, correct?
Yes.
I want to focus your attention on animal injuries. Have you been published in the area of animal injuries specifically?
Yes.
Do you recall those publications?
Yes, they had to do with law enforcement dog bites.
Did you draft an article or co-author an article called Managing Law Enforcement Dog Bites in the ER?
Yes, I was a co-author.
1996?
Sounds right.
And that was a peer-reviewed article?
Yes.
Ultimately published?
Yes.
And ultimately available to be cited by other doctors and studied by other doctors, correct?
Correct.
Did you also author or co-author an article entitled Law Enforcement Canine Dog Bites, Injuries, Complications, and Trends?
Yes, I did.
Was that in 1997?
Sounds right.
Was that also peer-reviewed?
Yes.
And that publication was also available for other physicians throughout California and throughout the country to refer to for the study of animal bites and dog bites, correct?
Dog bites, yes.
Dog bites. Concerning animal injuries, during the course of your professional experience, how many patients have you seen, diagnosed, and or treated with animal injuries, including dog bites and scratches, if you had to estimate?
Many hundreds.
Would you say it's over or under 1,000?
I would say it's over 500. I don't know because we didn't keep really good records back in the earlier days.
But it's safe to say you've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dog bites and scratches.
Yes, in my 29 years at LA County Hospital, yes. And my dog bites I took care of, and dog bites that the residents took care of, yes.
And you've even published articles and studied, not just seen them, but studied dog bites and dog wounds, correct?
Yes.
Have you qualified as an expert previously in other courts as in emergency medicine?
Yes.
Have you qualified as an expert in other courts in forensic pathology and wounds?
Yes.
Has that been in both state and federal court?
Yes.
Doctor, were you asked to review certain materials related to this case?
Yes.
And that was in furtherance of coming to, if you could, come to an opinion or a conclusion about injuries to the victim in this case, a person by the name of John O'Keefe.
Yes.
What did you review in anticipation of your determining whether or not you could come to an opinion or a conclusion?
So I reviewed hospital photographs, autopsy photographs, an autopsy report, grand jury testimony from the medical examiner in this case. There may be some other
based on
items.
I just want to ask about that. Do you have notes with you as to what you reviewed?
No.
Okay, so when you say there might be other, you don't.
Well,
If he tells you what you reviewed, you'd know it.
I would recognize it.
All right, but I want to hear it from you. You don't know of anything else that you've reviewed. This is sort of important, Mr. Jackson.
Okay.
Can you think of anything else, Doctor,
The
besides
autopsy.
these?
Autopsy photographs, autopsy report, neuropathology report, toxicology report, and the grand jury testimony.
Okay, so as you recall, the items that you reviewed include an autopsy report by Dr. Scortibello, correct?
Yes.
A neuropathology report by a doctor named Stonebridge, correct?
Yes.
Toxicological reports associated with the autopsy?
Yes.
Grand jury transcripts from Dr. Scortibello?
Yes.
Photographs of evidence items, including a gray sweatshirt?
Oh, yes. Yes.
And autopsy photos that were taken attendant to the actual autopsy?
Yes, and photographs that were taken in the hospital, and I reviewed the hospital ER record also.
She's a smart
So in
cookie.
addition to what you just listed, there's also hospital photos separate and apart from the autopsy photos, is that correct?
Yes.
And those hospital photos showed the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's arm, is that right?
Yes.
And you also reviewed emergency room records that are attendant to his initial acceptance into the emergency room on January 29th, 2022, correct?
That's correct.
Based on your review of all of those materials, were you able to confidently come to any conclusions or opinions about the nature of the injuries suffered by John O'Keefe, specifically as they relate to John O'Keefe's right arm?
Yes.
What is your opinion and conclusion concerning those injuries?
Those injuries appear to be consistent with an animal attack.
Can you be more specific in terms of the type of animal, or are you relegated to simply an animal attack?
Well, they are consistent with a large dog attack. There's a combination of both what I consider bite wounds and scratch wounds on the arm. There were also some puncture wounds in that shirt.
And are the
So I'm sorry, puncture wounds in the shirt?
Puncture holes
Okay.
in the shirt.
And on what do you base the opinion that the injuries are consistent with dog bite or scratch marks?
Well, the patterns. There are several patterns of parallel wounds that appear to be superficial scratches that could have been caused by nails or could have been caused by teeth. There are different angles on the arm and different locations on the arm, and but they're generally oriented in a specific direction. And there's also an area, the distal forearm, which is close to the wrist, which shows what I believe is an arch area of teeth marks.
And what's the significance of the arch area?
Well, so the arch would be the front area of the jaw of the animal, you know, or the dog in this case, where the teeth are tend to be close together and curved. There's a curved pattern to the configuration of the teeth.
Let me have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Do you think, let's do a poll if you think that she's going to let it in.
Doctor, I want to show you a series of photographs. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
First, can you describe whether or not you recognize what's depicted in that photograph? Have you seen that photograph before?
Yes, I have.
Is that part of what you reviewed in coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Yes.
What is that a photograph of?
So this is a photograph of the decedent's arm near the elbow. And do you want me to describe what it shows?
Just briefly, an
Okay.
overview of what
Yeah, and it shows wounds.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that that be marked as next in order of evidence.
All right, so for this voir dire, we'll have separate evidence, right? Is this an exhibit number in the trial already?
It has not been marked yet, so I'm fine with starting over, sort of for the purposes of the voir dire process. How are the purposes to do it?
So this will be a separate voir dire with separate exhibit, yes.
So it's going to be exhibit 1?
Yes.
Your Honor, I want to move this along. This has been marked, but I think...
Hold on. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
This one of the three has already been marked, but if, just for consistency, I'd rather mark it additionally for voir dire. Yes.
Need a separate record for the voir dire.
May I approach?
Yes.
This one's already been marked, but I'll remark it.
And if you'd tell me the exhibit numbers that they are. So you're putting these in now? There's no objection, Mr. Lally?
For purposes of this, no.
Okay. So we'll mark these now, but
May I approach?
yes.
No.
The one with the label 2858 on the bottom has previously been marked in the trial. I would ask that this be marked as the next in order for the voir dire.
But what I want is the exhibit number at the trial.
Oh, I'll get that for you. I believe it's exhibit 19.
Okay?
Is that 19?
That's correct.
It's 19.
Okay?
That comment made me laugh.
And is the third one also in evidence, you said?
2 of the 3 have not been marked. I'll as soon as Madam Court reporter is ready.
She's ready.
I'm ready. May I just establish the foundation?
Yes.
The following 2 photographs that I just showed you, Doctor, do you recognize those?
Yes.
Did you also review those in terms of, in furtherance of coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Yes.
Do they also appear to be different photographs of John O'Keefe's arm?
Yes.
I would move for the admission of both of those, Your Honor, for purposes of voir dire.
There's been no objection to them, so they're in. They're already marked.
I just need to know which one's 2 and which one's 3. May I approach?
Yes.
No, they're marked.
Okay, that's. With court permission, may I publish
Yes.
Exhibit 2 for voir dire?
Yes.
Is this a photograph of of John O'Keefe's arm?
Yes.
Is this one of the several photographs that you reviewed in coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Yes.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. There should be a laser pointer on the desk.
Oh, okay.
Can you explain for the jurors what it is about the injuries that assisted you in coming to your opinion and conclusion that this is from an animal attack?
Okay, there's several patterns here. So, for instance, let's look here, right near the elbow, the exterior part of the elbow. There's these 2 linear marks, which appear to be from upper teeth, and 2 punctures below those, which are superficial, meaning they didn't go very deep into the skin, but they appear from the lower teeth. So that's one pattern. There's another pattern close to the shoulder, which shows parallel marks, these 2, and maybe a third one in the middle, parallel marks that are oriented at a certain angle, and these are superficial wounds, which are consistent with teeth marks. They also could be possibly consistent with nail marks, but
with what?
Nails from claw. Yes.
All right.
We have some more here, similar from obviously different teeth involved or different claws, and then down here, closer to the wrist, we have an unusual pattern of at least 4 striations, the way I see it, at least 4 striations that I believe are caused from the teeth towards the front of the mouth, near the arch. It appears that there's an arch pattern here. So,
in a dog attack or in an animal attack, in your experience, and we can take this one down. Let's cover the ground on the 3 exhibits that we've already marked. Can we take a look at Exhibit 1? Is this just may I publish, Your Honor? Yes. I apologize. Is this just a close-up of the same injuries?
Yes.
And do these appear to be consistent with what you just testified to in terms of either teeth or claw marks, especially as it relates to the area closest to the elbow?
Yes.
All right. And then looking at Exhibit 3. May I publish?
Yes.
Is this a close-up view of the area closer to the wrist that indicated those parallel, you used the word striations?
Yes.
All right, and these appear to be taken, attendant to the autopsy as opposed to the other photograph, Exhibit 2, that was taken in the hospital, is that right?
That is correct.
All right, and would the time difference account for the slight change in the nature of the wound?
It could.
Photograph of the wound, I guess?
It could, or a different technique, yes.
Okay, let me take these down. Did you take into consideration the lack, in coming to your opinion and conclusion, the lack of other injuries, for instance, fractures, broken bones, or deep bruising, soft tissue injuries?
Oh, yes.
How did that play into your opinion?
Well, so of course, I considered, what else could have caused these wounds, before coming to my conclusion. And so I wanted to rule out other things. And there were no significant major bodily injuries outside the head. There was nothing, there were no fractures of the long bones, the chest, the pelvis, the arms. So so having seen hundreds and hundreds of car accident victims and people hit by cars, I ruled that out very quickly.
Okay. And in terms of the injuries that you did see, especially as they're attendant to the arm, based on everything that we've discussed today, is it your opinion, based on a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, that those injuries are consistent with an animal attack as opposed to a motor vehicular pedestrian incident?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Lally.
Lally's like, I don't know what to ask.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I can take you back to, you were talking about some police training that you had received when you were in the academy or while you were working with the police department here in Massachusetts, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, what kind of training or what did that training consist of?
Well, I attended and graduated from the standard police academy at that time. And then I took additional courses that were offered from the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council. And these were taught generally by experts in their fields, and they were on a variety of subjects that are listed in my CV, included, the hit and run accident investigation, forensic.
There, just for a minute, ma'am. Doctor, in reference to your training as it pertains to hit and run accidents, what did that training consist of?
Oh, well, mechanisms of how accidents occur, mechanisms of how to determine, what vehicle was involved in an accident. I don't, it was a long time ago, but yeah. So determining if people were struck by vehicles, what vehicle was involved, or if there was auto versus auto accident, what vehicles were involved.
And I don't mean to belittle this training whatsoever, but is it fair to say that that was relatively rudimentary training that you received in the academy?
Oh, if he's going to be talking
Probably, I
about...
would not. Yes, okay, probably. If
You don't have any training in crash reconstruction or anything like that, correct?
That is correct.
And am I correct in you indicated that you're board certified in emergency medicine, is that right?
That's correct.
And so you're not board certified in forensic pathology or anatomical pathology or any kind of pathology?
That's correct.
And the last time that you worked as a coroner, when was that?
Last time was in 1995 when I was doing autopsies for the coroner's office. I have since, though, consulted on some cases from the LA coroner's office.
What, about 30 years ago? Is that about right?
For autopsy, yes.
Now, have you ever testified in a case in which either Mr. Jackson or Attorney Little were counsel?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And when was it that you first were contacted in reference to this case?
The first contact was May 15th.
May 15th of what year?
May 17th, excuse me, of this year, 2024. Yes.
And you went through a list of things that you were provided and you reviewed, and you mentioned hospital photos, correct?
Yes.
Autopsy photos, is that correct?
Yes.
An autopsy report, is that correct?
Yes.
Grand jury testimony from the medical examiner, is that correct?
Yes.
A neuropathology report, is that correct?
Yes.
A toxicology report, is that correct?
Yes.
And then I think you also remembered some photos of some clothing items, is that correct as well?
Yes, a shirt. And
anything else?
Yeah, hospital ER record.
I'm going to pause this right now. Do not come in this chat talking shit about other people. We don't do that here. You can move it on along and go be like that in somebody else's chat. I'm not in the mood. This is not what we do here. We respect each other's opinions. That's going to be your only warning. Only warning. One more comment and you're getting the hell out. We don't do that here.
Hospital ER records.
Yeah, yes.
Anything else that you can think of?
No.
Did you ask for anything else to review?
No.
Were you told of any other material that was available for your review that you weren't then given?
Well, I requested that that I focus in on the wounds, so I didn't ask for a lot of material in this case.
But fair to say that you were looking for anything and everything, material to the wounds that you were asked to look at, correct?
Please say that again.
Sure. Fair to say that you would want to look at anything and everything that was related to the wounds that you were asked to look at, correct?
Yes.
And so, did you make any specific requests as to what material you were provided, or were you just handed some material or forwarded some material and you looked at what you were given?
No, I requested that I have the autopsy photographs, the ER records, the ER photographs. I requested those.
Now, you mentioned some articles that you had written that were published back in 1996 and 1997 related to dog bites, is that right?
Yes.
Are those publicly available articles?
Yes.
And in those articles that you wrote, you were talking about law enforcement bites, correct?
Yes.
So law enforcement canine bites typically involve what people call sort of a bite and hold technique, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So is there a difference between, through your experience and the hundreds of dog bites that you've seen, is there a difference between what you would observe from a dog bite from a law enforcement canine versus just your domesticated dog?
Well, yes. Now, the study, one of those studies was over 700 dog bite wounds, and there were two techniques used at that time: bite and hold, and later on, bark and hold, or bark and alert, or something of that nature. So there are different techniques, but yes, to specifically answer that question, which was, are they generally different from regular domestic dog bites? Yes.
Now, did you write a report in regard to your opinion that you testified to here today?
No.
Why not?
I don't think there was much time, and I didn't know if I was going to be actually testifying.
How long would it take you to write a report?
I wasn't asked to write a report, excuse me.
Were you asked specifically not to write a report?
No.
Now, at any point in time, did you ever look at anything related to Mr. O'Keefe's head injury?
Oh, yes.
So you reviewed reports in relation to that, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any opinions as it pertains to that?
I would rather defer to the pathologist and neuropathologist on that.
So who contacted you about this case?
I contacted a district attorney that I had worked with in the past. We were discussing a different case, a case that I autopsied in 1995, and I mentioned that I heard that there was a case in Massachusetts that might have been being handled by one of his colleagues, his former colleagues, and that there was an issue of whether something was a dog bite, and that I might be able to help in that case, to clarify.
And so when you were provided this material, what is it that you were specifically asked to do?
To look at the wounds and the reports and the materials that were sent to me and render an opinion.
And so before you had even been provided any material, before you had even looked at anything, you had already heard information related to there being a dog bite involved in this case, correct?
I had heard that there was a controversy, that there's some certain wounds could have been a dog bite versus perhaps inflicted by a motor vehicle. That's what I had heard.
So, ma'am, what I'm really trying to get at, doctor, is sort of the timeline. Okay, so you hear about this, when was that?
Sometime just before May 17th.
So sometime just prior to that, you hear about some controversy in a case in Massachusetts involving a dog bite. On May 17th, you get reached out to by who specifically?
His name is John Lewin. He's an attorney in the LA District Attorney's Office.
And then who did you talk to after that?
I reached out to him. I said I might be able to clarify. And then he reached out to Mr. Jackson, I believe, and then Mr. Jackson contacted me.
And not asking specifically anything you spoke about, but at some point, the discussion came specifically to dog bites, correct?
He sent me the materials. He asked me my opinion.
Mentioned the materials, asked you your opinion. When did you provide that opinion?
Probably the next day. Yes, I know it was the next day.
So the very next day, on May 18th, you provided an opinion?
Yes.
And was that opinion provided in a written fashion, orally? How was that provided?
Orally.
So you reached out to someone shortly before May 17th, spoke to Mr. Jackson on the 17th, received all the material, and then had an opinion by May 18th?
Yes.
But you didn't write any of that down?
No.
Now, beyond the materials that you were provided, what else were you told about the case?
I was told that the victim was a police officer. The decedent is a police officer. I was told that the defendant had been charged, and I was told that that there was a controversy about whether or not these injuries had been caused by a motor vehicle. And I was also told, and I read in the medical record, that the decedent was found outdoors, I believe in the snow, and hypothermic.
Now, in regard to what you reviewed, you didn't review any investigator reports, is that correct?
That is correct.
You didn't review any witness statements, is that correct?
That's correct.
You didn't review any lab reports as far as from the forensic lab or anything like that?
I reviewed the toxicology report.
Beyond that, any other?
If it was part of the autopsy report, I reviewed it.
So you reviewed everything attendant to the medical examiner's file, is that correct?
Yes.
But nothing from the lab beyond that?
I don't believe I did.
Now, this first instance when you say you heard about it, how did you hear about it?
Well, I believe it was via a headline that I received in my email from the from Boston Globe headline. You know, it was some kind of there was some kind of interesting case, and I got it as an email, and I looked into it.
And when was that?
Well, that was that week in May, just a few days before May 17th.
You subscribed to the Boston Globe online?
I did at that time. I have not renewed it.
How long had you been a subscriber to the Boston Globe?
I'm going to allow it.
Probably a year or 6 months, 6 months to a year.
And there was never any headlines or anything else that you saw about this prior to that week just before May 17th?
Not that I paid attention to.
I have nothing further.
Anything further, Mr. Jackson?
Nothing further.
All right, so since this is a voir dire, I get to ask questions, Doctor? So
Oh, yes,
I
okay.
just have a couple of questions for you. I don't think I really heard you. So could you tell me again what your opinion is and to what degree you hold that opinion?
Yes. These injuries in the arm are, my opinion is that they are the result of animal bites or scratches.
And do you know what kind of animal?
Oh, yes, most likely dog, large dog. And I'm very reasonable, very sure to, what's the word I want? Medical certainty, very
All right, so
high degree of medical certainty.
Reasonable degree of medical certainty.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and another question. So I received information that you also viewed all reports associated with Chloe, a dog's prior bite history. Did you review those?
No, I don't recall ever seeing anything like that.
That you also reviewed the UC Davis DNA testing results submission forms?
No, I don't recall seeing them.
Okay, any follow-up, any questions based on my questions?
Not for the Commonwealth, no.
No, Your Honor.
All right, you are all set, Doctor. I don't know yet whether you'll be testifying.
Okay.
We'll try and let you know. Are you going to be around for a few days?
No.
Okay, we'll let you know as soon as we can, okay?
Okay, okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
You think they'll let it in? I think the poll was like half and half. Oh.
So I would like to hear argument on this witness before we hear the other witnesses. So, and Ms. Gianetti, I asked you the other day whether she reached out to you or you reached out to her, and you said there was an intermediary. But my concern was whether she came out of nowhere and reached out about this case, and that seems to sort of...
It wasn't Mr. Gianetti, it was me.
Okay. All right. So the question I asked was answered pretty much by this witness, whether she saw something and decided she wanted to come forward. All right. It's the Commonwealth's motion. What are you asking me to do? Again, I found a violation of Rule 14. There are two concerns here: the competency of the witness's testimony, how much she can testify to, whether she should testify at all. What is it you're asking me, Mr. Lally?
Your Honor, I'm asking that the witness be excluded from testifying at the trial for the violation of Rule 14, specifically, I believe it's Rule 14A6. This is a witness, as the court picked up on, that reached out, albeit through an intermediary, with reference to just sort of discovering or coming upon this case in several weeks into the trial. It is concerning, given the fact that the witness represented that she had a subscription to the Globe Online, received word of this, and the first time that she had ever seen it or it had grabbed her attention was in that first week of May, when, as the court is well aware, there's been widespread media coverage, particularly through the Boston Globe, for years at this point. The limitations of the testimony, it's also concerning because the disclosure from counsel indicated, again, as the court had noted, I didn't want to get into too much as far as for purposes of this voir dire, but there was additional material that was indicated in the disclosure that the witness had reviewed, including the UC Davis related to the canine DNA or the lack thereof, as well as, forgive me, the dog bite history of that specific dog, which also, I would note for the court, includes photographs of what a dog bite from that specific dog looks like. And that specifically apparently was not provided to this witness, who's then opining on, inferably at least, that that dog was the cause of these particular injuries. However, was not shown specifically anything to do with that bite history as far as by way of reports or photographs. So that juxtaposed or coupled with the immensely late disclosure. I mean, we're talking about at least the 6th week of trial by the time this witness is even mentioned, not on the defendant's witness list, not mentioned at any point in time during the pendency of the case, and then sort of pops up in the middle of May, and to the point that the limited amount of material or information that's provided by counsel as far as disclosure opinion doesn't come until today. So for all those reasons, Your Honor, the Commonwealth is requesting that her testimony in its entirety be excluded from this trial.
Jackson?
Your Honor, exclusion is the highest form of punishment. It's the highest form of sanction that the court has available to it. Just to put a fine point on it, it is a dire remedy. And I know the court has mentioned 2 or 3 times, I'm finding a violation of Rule 14. That sounds as if the court is suggesting or has inferred that we did something wrong. We didn't do anything wrong. As the court learned, I didn't reach out to her. She reached out and said, hey, look, I've got some experience with this.
I asked you that the other day, though, and I was told that you reached out to her through an intermediary. I wasn't told she reached out to you through an intermediary.
I don't know that there's a difference. I mean,
What I was trying to get at, is this somebody who read about this case and said, you know, I want to be part of that? That's what I was trying to get at. I think it was pretty clear, Mr. Jackson. Go ahead, continue with your argument.
okay, I did not misrepresent anything to the court.
I didn't say that.
I take offense at the court's tone. That yes, you did say that. You just said that. You said,
Okay.
I just heard the testimony, and it's not what I said the other day. I know a person in Los Angeles DA's office. I received a text message from that person saying there's someone who reached out to me who said I might be able to elucidate on this controversy concerning the dog bites. I then reached out to her. So when you asked me who reached out to whom, I reached out to her through an intermediary, my friend in the DA's office back in Los Angeles County. I wasn't Mrs.
So maybe it wasn't clear what I was looking for. I think it was clear. But go ahead, continue with your argument on this.
My point is, Rule 14 requires a sanction if, in fact, the attorney has done something wrong. In other words, it connotes the idea that we're doing something by actively hiding evidence or holding back evidence or not providing evidence that you know you're going to use at some point in an effort to take a tactical advantage. And the sanction for that is exclusion. I've never met this woman. First time I laid eyes on her was during the process after she flew out here to engage this voir dire process. She indicated I could potentially provide some information about this controversy concerning dog bites. I then sent her materials. I talked to her. I sent her materials. I found her to be incredibly credible. I found her to be experienced. And I found her to be knowledgeable in this very specific area, which is rare. There's not that many people who have published, doctors who have published in the area of dog bites specifically. So I thought it makes sense for me to reach out to her and talk to her, which is exactly what we did. And within a couple of days, literally, you could almost count it by the hours of me receiving her information, we then had a discussion amongst ourselves. Is this somebody that we want to then present on the defense side, on the defense case, and we turned the information over to Mr. Lally. I understand that it was well into the trial, but that's not a fault of ours, and I don't think the sanction of exclusion is necessary or appropriate to punish Ms. Reed from having an experienced witness testify in rebuttal to ultimately what Dr. Scorti-Bello and the Commonwealth is going to present in their case in chief. That's what she's going to do. She's going to present contrary evidence or an alternative theory of where those injuries came from to a person. Everybody on the Commonwealth side who can elucidate about this has said those injuries come from a taillight, including Mr. Paul yesterday. We have contrary evidence, and Ms. Reed should be entitled to present that evidence, even though it came late. It didn't come late by any fault of ours, and I don't believe that the Commonwealth has made out a prejudice that they can't overcome. It's late. Obviously, Mr. Lally is a skilled lawyer. There's nothing to say that he can't or hasn't been able to prepare for the cross-examination or for an examination in front of the jury, and I just don't think exclusion is appropriate.
All right, so the second part of this argument, and I'll start with the Commonwealth first. So in your motion to exclude, you also raise Daubert-type concerns. So, Mr. Lally, is there portions, if I permit her to testify, are there portions, focus specifically on the part of her opinion where she says, I guess the defense expects her to be able to say she will testify that these injuries are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle, road rash, or scratches from broken glass or taillight material. I think you have an uphill battle on that part, Mr. Jackson. But Commonwealth, what are you saying? If she testifies, what should she be able to testify to? And don't just say nothing. I want some input.
No. If the court were permitted to test the doctor to testify, Your Honor, what I would submit would be permissible testimony from a legal standpoint, as some factual questions in regard to that. But from a legal standpoint, I think the court could permit her to testify as to the injuries that she observed, her work and history in that area, observing prior injuries related to animal attacks and whatever consistency she believes that they have with that. I do not think it would be proper to allow this witness to testify or opine anything about the inconsistency with regard to pedestrian injuries. I don't think any proper foundation has been laid for there, whether it be through experiential knowledge in relation to that, or any sort of specialized training or knowledge, or anything to do with that. Anything from a forensic pathology or anatomical pathology perspective, I think should also be out of bounds and excluded with regard to this witness. She's certainly a very experienced emergency room physician, so anything in relation to that, I think it's permissible. But as far as the experience when it comes to motor vehicle crashes or pedestrian crashes, of which the court is well aware, there are a litany of different types of interactions a pedestrian can have with a motor vehicle in a collision sequence, and simply saying, well, there was no injuries to the leg, so it couldn't have been a motor vehicle collision, is just plain wrong, and not backed up by science or anything else that this witness can testify to from the very limited experience she has in that realm. So if the witness were able or permitted by the court to testify, I would submit that her testimony should be relegated to simply what, if any, opinions, her experience, obviously, and then what, if any, opinions she draws with regard to the causation of the injuries on the right arm, as it pertains to consistency there. But I venture to guess that it's likely that those are probably also going to be, in her opinion, consistent with many other causes beyond that, if she's being reasonable.
All right, Mr. Jackson?
I'll submit, Your Honor. I have no issue with, I just said I'll submit, I'm not submitting. I have no issue with limiting her testimony to the animal attack issue, the dog attack issue. I didn't, as the court noted, I didn't spend any time. I think I may have asked one question, is it consistent with the motor vehicle incident? I have no problem if the court wants to limit her testimony to the dog bite aspect and not the motor vehicle aspect. I wasn't planning on going into that aspect anyway, because I've got another pathologist who's going to do exactly that.
But you did go through it with her, and it's on your disclosure.
It is, but I have no problem editing.
So why is it on the disclosure, or what the Commonwealth turned over, that she viewed all reports associated with Chloe's bite history and the UC Davis DNA testing? Why is that in there?
Because we sent that in a Dropbox. We sent everything in a Dropbox, and I assumed that she reviewed it. She must not have seen it or opened it or reviewed it. I didn't know. But that's what was sent to her. Everything that's in the disclosure is what was sent to her.
All right. If she's permitted to testify, you led her through quite a bit today. You won't be able to. I mean, she struggled with to what degree of certainty she held an opinion. She struggled to what she viewed. She didn't write a report. I have to consider all of these things too, as the gatekeeper, as to whether she can actually assist the jury. So I'm not deciding this right here. Mr. Lally, if I do permit her to testify, I will give you time to absorb this testimony and to find an expert in rebuttal for this. How long might something like that take?
Not terribly long, Your Honor. As far as preparation, I can't give an exact time frame on that. As far as a rebuttal witness, I'd say a week at the most.
A week from today?
Yes.
Why don't you start looking at least? All right, well, I decide I won't know until Thursday.
Sure.
All right. All right, anything else on this witness?
Submitted, Your Honor.
All right, next witness, please.
With regard to Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Renschler, this is a different scenario, and I'm presuming that the court is asking for a what year on their qualifications.
Well, I want to know who did what. I want to know, they say we. I want to know who did what.
Is the court suggesting that I go through their entire testimony of exactly what they did, their testing, their opinions, conclusions, the bases of their opinions and conclusions?
However you want to do it, Mr. Jackson, we're here today on the Commonwealth's motion.
I realize that, but it's not the Commonwealth's motion to depose our experts. The Commonwealth's motion is they're not qualified as accident reconstructionists. I don't need to go, and I'm not inclined to give them a free bite at the apple to cross-examine these witnesses twice on the basis of their opinion. I will go through, I think, to the court's satisfaction. I don't think it's going to take long to figure out that they're extraordinarily qualified to render opinions, but I don't think it's incumbent upon me to walk through their entire testimony and give the Commonwealth a free bite at the apple like it's a deposition.
Whatever you want to do. I'm not telling you what to do. Whatever you want to do.
I missed a lot of it. Ricky Watson. I don't feel good today. I don't have patience. So when people come in being rude to our people, I don't tolerate that mess. Girl Underestimated, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you, thank you. What if they were drunk and stupid and played with the dog, allowing him to attack to see what they would do, and got out of hand? I'm open to all theories.
So, Ms. Wynn, you ever give the court the case now and here and should the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Pull the seat in and just speak very loudly into the microphone.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Daniel Wolfe, last name spelled W-O-L-F-E.
Sir, what do you do for a living?
I am the director of accident reconstruction at a company known as ARCCA, A-R-C-C-A.
And tell us a little bit about ARCCA. If you could explain for the court what ARCCA is and what its primary mission is.
So ARCCA is a forensic consulting engineering company. We have a variety of disciplines that include biomechanics, failure analysis, human factors, premise liability, crashworthiness, and accident reconstruction.
You said that you were the current director of accident reconstruction, correct?
That is correct.
Is that a specialty of ARCCA specifically?
Yes, sir.
And what sort of contracts does ARCCA routinely engage in?
We typically work for law firms, insurance carriers.
What about other clientele? For instance, maybe it's an insurance carrier or a law firm, but what about the ultimate client? The military, Department of Defense? Have you contracted with other entities or agencies, sporting agencies?
Certainly, yes. We've done research for the military. We do player safety for the NHL. So yes, we are involved in a number of research projects as well.
And in terms of ARCCA and its commissions and consultation, is it known both nationally and internationally? Is it recognized as a leader in the area of accident reconstruction?
Yes.
As the director of accident reconstruction, do you specialize in not only accident reconstruction, but human factors as well?
Yes, sir.
Can you give me a synopsis of the professional discipline of accident reconstruction? What is accident reconstruction?
Well, I think that's a very broad topic. I look at the cases that come across my desk. You know, I've been involved with pedestrian impacts, and that can be pedestrians hitting the side of vehicles, fronts, backs, getting run over by vehicles, being struck by a vehicle, then projected into another vehicle. I've dealt with your simple fender bender collisions. I've dealt with collisions that involve 60-car pileups on a highway. So Again, accident reconstruction in terms of the scope for a case, it can really vary case to case depending on the facts and circumstances of that case.
And when you say dealt with, are you talking about literally going into, from an engineering and a scientific standpoint, trying to reconstruct what happened, what the causal effects were of that accident, and what the results were, the resultant damage or injuries were?
Absolutely.
What about human factors? What does that discipline entail? What is human factors?
Well, to give you an example of that, so I do a lot of nighttime visibility work where, for instance, let's say a pedestrian's coming out onto the roadway at night. Maybe it's not a lit roadway and you're relying on your vehicle headlights to illuminate that pedestrian. So it's determining when would a driver recognize that individual on the roadway based upon the headlights, if there is any artificial lighting, their clothing. And then we look at how do drivers respond based upon that scenario that they're presented with. So we know that response times are different depending on the hazard that's presented to them. So if it's a pedestrian coming to the roadway, it's a vehicle stopping in front of you. So that's the application of human factors.
And that might include everything from passenger vehicles, commercial vehicles, bicycle issues, motorcycle issues, things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What education, training, and background qualifies you to perform the duties that you just described as director of accident reconstruction at ARCCA?
In terms of my educational background, I received a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from James Madison University back in 2012, along with a minor in mathematics. Some of my coursework while at James Madison included courses in physics, statics, dynamics, kinematics, material science, and your typical engineering sciences. Subsequent to my undergraduate degree, I then went on to the University of Delaware to pursue my PhD in electrical and computer engineering with a concentration in electromagnetics and photonics.
Did your research area also include physics, in addition to electromagnetics?
Yes, sir.
Optics?
Yes, sir.
Photonics?
Yes, sir.
And lighting?
Correct.
Are you accredited as a traffic accident reconstructionist?
Yes, sir.
By whom?
By an organization known as ACTAR, which is the Accreditation Commission for Traffic Accident Reconstructionists.
Are you trained in photogrammetry to determine vehicle crash and map scene evidence from photographs?
Yes, sir.
In other words, looking at a photograph rather than being at the scene, that is a specialty or a specific area of training that you've engaged, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you trained in Bosch crash data retrieval analysis?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise known as CDR analysis, right?
Correct.
In terms of professional associations and accreditations, are you certified by the Society of Automotive Engineers?
Yes, I'm a member of that organization.
What about being a member of Optical Society of America?
Yes, sir.
Illuminating Engineering Society?
Yes, sir.
And finally, the National Association of Professional Accident Reconstruction Specialists?
Yes, sir.
You're accredited by all of those organizations, is that right?
I'm a member of all of those, yes, sir.
Have you authored peer-reviewed articles in the area that we've just discussed?
I've authored a number of papers in the field of physics, and one of my most recent publications was that dealing with Toyota and Lexus vehicle control history records.
In 2021, did you author or co-author a peer-reviewed article known as Collision, the International Compendium for Crash Research Dealing with Vehicle Control History and Braking Issues?
Yes, sir.
Have you qualified in other courts to testify as an expert in the area of accident reconstruction?
Yes, sir.
Importantly, were you hired by the defense in this case?
No, sir.
Before this morning, when you walked into court, have you and I ever met face-to-face?
No, sir.
In terms of the commission that you were
That gives him more
asked to
credibility.
undertake, in this case, that have anything to do with the defense?
No, sir.
That have anything to do with the Commonwealth?
No, sir.
So a third-party agency hired you and commissioned you, or ARCCA, with the responsibility of doing an accident reconstruction in this case, correct?
Correct.
The person to my left, the female to my left sitting here, you ever seen her before?
Nope.
Do you know who she is?
Yes.
How many times have you been qualified in other courts to testify as an expert in the area of accident reconstruction?
I think that's around 20 times to date.
In both federal and state court?
Just state court.
Multiple states?
Yes, sir.
Your analysis, conclusions, and opinions are completely independent, whatever they are. Those analysis, conclusions, and opinions in this case are completely independent of the defense and of the Commonwealth. Have I got that right?
It's based on the evidence, that's correct.
And you're not paid by Either side here in this courtroom.
Correct.
That gives him so much more credibility to
You and
me.
your team were asked to undertake a review for purposes of accident reconstruction of the case that's now pending before the court.
And he's
Is that
so
right?
qualified.
That's correct.
He needs to be
Who
let
at
in.
ARCCA was assigned to the team who ultimately would undertake that analysis?
So it was myself, Dr. Andrew Renschler, and Scott Klein.
And Scott Klein has a Master of Science, is that right?
I believe he's got a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, yes.
In engineering?
Correct.
All right. And Dr. Renschler is a PhD in what area?
Biomechanical Engineering.
Were you provided and did you review certain materials in furtherance of your consultation in this matter?
Yes, sir.
I can have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
He's qualified and he's not hired
I'd
by
like
either
to
side.
Use my time efficiently, Doctor. I'm going to read through a number of materials that you reviewed.
And we want the truth.
Before I do that, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
What better way to get to the truth than somebody who's not hired by either side,
I just
who's
want you to take a look at
disqualified?
the first 2 pages of that document and tell me if you recognize that.
Yes, sir.
What is that? What are those 2 pages?
These are the first 2 pages from the report that ARCCA issued in regards to this matter.
Do you see a list of 14 items on those 2 pages?
Yes, sir.
Is that an accurate reflection of the items that you were provided by this other agency to review in terms of coming to your opinions and conclusions concerning this case?
Yes, sir.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Those items include the Norfolk SPDU homicide death report, correct?
Correct.
The Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of State Police crime scene report, correct?
Correct.
The OCME dispatch removal report, correct?
Correct.
Photographs of the incident location.
Correct.
Videos of the incident location.
Correct.
Photographs of the 2021 Lexus LX 570.
Correct.
Photographs of recovered evidence.
Correct.
Crash data retrieval report from the 2021 Lexus 570.
Correct.
Report of autopsy.
Correct.
Autopsy photographs.
Yes.
3-dimensional laser scan data of a Lexus LX 570.
Yes.
A VIN-Link, VIN capital LINK report sheet for the 2021 Lexus LX 570.
Yes.
Expert AutoStats data sheets for a 2021 Lexus LX 570.
Yes.
And publicly available literature, including but not limited to the documents cited within the report, learned treatises, textbooks, and scientific standards, correct?
Correct.
All of those items and data were reviewed by you and your team in coming to your conclusions and opinions in this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to ask you one other series of questions concerning sort of who did what. Your report indicates that there were, in no small part, 2 undertakings, if I can ask them in terms of pillars. The damage to the vehicle and the injuries to the body of John O'Keefe, correct?
I would say that's a fair characterization, yes.
Okay. And I may be butchering this a bit because I'm not being very scientific, but were you more responsible for the vehicle damage or the injury damage?
The vehicle damage.
And who on your team was more responsible for the injury damage?
That would be Dr. Andrew Renschler.
Obviously, Dr. Wolfe, in coming to your opinions and conclusions concerning the damage to the vehicle, you had to consider the damage to the human being, correct, John O'Keefe?
Correct.
And as the team leader, in terms of Dr. Renschler coming to his conclusions and opinions concerning the damage to the human being, he also had to consider the damage to the vehicle and the interplay of the two, correct?
Correct. We work together.
I was just going to say, is that how you two and Mr. Klein work together to come to the opinions and conclusions that are cited in your multi-page report?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Lally?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Lally's still trying to spell MIT. That cracked me up.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
you went through a list of about 14 things that are contained within your report that your firm or your agency was provided with that you reviewed, correct?
That is correct.
Did you specifically review all 14 of those things, or was that done as sort of a team?
Yes, I looked through all of the documents.
So you personally looked at all 14 of those items that are listed within the report?
Yes, sir.
And you indicate that it was your opinions or what you did in this case, that was, you were asked to answer specific questions, correct?
Yes.
It wasn't like you were just tasked with, hey, here's some facts, go do, or take a look at a crash reconstruction or create a crash reconstruction. You were asked very specific questions and you tried to answer them the best you could, correct?
I don't know that there were specific questions. I think ultimately it was an open-ended question.
So related to you testified as to two specific areas that your firm or your agency looked at, right?
Those are the disciplines that the report covers, yes.
Well, you testified about some other areas of expertise as far as human factors, visibility, luminescence, things like that. You didn't do any of those things here, correct?
Wasn't part of my scope in this case.
And the scope in your case, you indicate that it was based on the evidence, correct?
That is correct.
Now, to be fair, that's based on the evidence that you were provided, correct?
Correct.
So what did Mr. Klein do?
So as a part of the engagement with the entity that ultimately retained us in this, due to the confidentiality of it, only those who had access to the material, to the file, were allowed to review it and discuss it. And essentially, Scott Klein served as kind of another reconstruction expert to essentially bounce ideas off of and help with the review.
So for lack of a better term, sort of provided, let's say, sort of technical review of your work and Dr. Renschler's work, is that correct?
I would say assist us with the analysis, yes.
Now, obviously, your firm or your agency issued a report in relation to what you did, correct?
That's correct.
And you've obviously had a time to review that report as far as what's contained in there factually, as well as conclusions and opinions, things of that nature?
Yes.
So is it your testimony that anything that has to do with anything factually, conclusions, opinions, or otherwise, in relation to the motor vehicle damage, those are your opinions, those are your conclusions, correct?
I would say that's fair, yes.
And again, based on the evidence that you will provide, correct?
Correct.
And so the facts or evidence or conclusions or opinions related to injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, that was Dr. or Mr. Renschler's area, is that fair to say?
Dr. Renschler, yes.
And again, that was based on the evidence or whatever he was providing, correct?
Correct.
Which would be the same materials that you had testified that you had reviewed, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing.
Anything further, Mr. Jackson? All right, so, Doctor, I just have one question for you. What specifically were you asked to do?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I didn't hear the court's.
What specifically were you asked to do?
So the agency that retained us gave us a selected quantity of file material related to this case, and essentially left it as an open-ended question. Ultimately, was the evidence consistent with a pedestrian interaction between Mr. John O'Keefe and the Lexus?
Okay, you said selected quantity of information. Who selected that information?
As far as I'm concerned, it would be the Department of Justice and the FBI.
All right, and they just gave you what they wanted to give you, as far as you know?
We had no say in what material was handed over to us.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any questions based on my questions?
They just gave you what
Mr.
they
Lally?
wanted to give you?
Just briefly.
And I apologize for this, I'm just unaware. Is it Mr. Wolfe or Dr. Wolfe?
Dr. Wolfe is fine.
So, Dr. Wolfe, when you say that you were asked specifically whether or not the evidence the limited scope that you were provided was consistent with a pedestrian collision. Were you asked sort of in general terms as far as any type of pedestrian collision, or were you asked specifically as far as biomechanically could say the injury to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head have been caused by contact with the vehicle? How open-ended was this question?
Again, I think it relates to, is the vehicle damage consistent with the pedestrian impact, and are the injuries consistent with the pedestrian impact?
We need to know that.
And again, the whole panoply of injuries, is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Let me rephrase. So did anybody specifically ask you to determine whether or not the injuries to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head could have been caused by a motor vehicle?
I don't know that they asked us specifically. Again, they basically asked us to perform an accident reconstruction and biomechanical analysis and basically tell them our findings, and these are our findings.
So Lally was wrong.
And in the materials that you reviewed, did you see anything in there of any sort of statement, suggestion, intimation, anything at all that suggested that the injuries or the fracture to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head was caused by a motor vehicle?
In terms of direct contact?
Yes.
No, I don't believe so.
Nothing correct.
Anything?
Nothing.
All right, Dr. Wolfe, you are all set, sir.
Thank you.
What? Y'all, this whole time I've been giving him the benefit of the doubt. Y'all, this whole time. This whole time. Do you realize what just happened? Hold on. Before we move on, do you realize what just happened? For those of you who watched the pre-trial stuff with me, do you remember they talked about the crash reconstructionist, and Alan Jackson said that the feds said that his injuries are not consistent with having been struck by a car, and the car is not consistent with having been struck by Officer O'Keefe. Period, full stop, right? So I was like, okay, I haven't seen the Fed report, so I'm like, that sounds really bad for the prosecution, but I'm going to keep myself open. And then in another hearing, whatever it was, the next one or the one after that, Lally said, well, that was only about that's being misrepresented. That's only about the back of his head. And I was like, okay, so then the defense maybe misrepresented that. So I've kept an open mind this whole time. So Lally said in that hearing that when Alan Jackson was reading that report and said that the injuries in the car don't line up, Lally said that that was only about the back of his head. So this whole time I've given them the benefit of the doubt, thinking, okay, that's defense being defense. And now Lally's asking him, okay, was that specifically about the back of the head? And he's like, no, it was an open-ended question. It was an open-ended question. It wasn't about just the back of the head. This whole time I've been like, okay, well, I don't, like, not that I dismissed what the Fed said, but I have kept everything open on that, because even though the car and the injuries don't make sense to me, I wanted to hear what the Feds actually said about it. And Lally this whole time, like, he specifically said that that was only in reference to the car not hitting the back of his head. And now this guy's like, no, that's not what was said. So this to me is another one of those misrepresentations, like where he said in that one hearing, Karen Reed said that she saw Colin and Brian smash John O'Keefe's head into the taillight or whatever. And we were like, what? And then it played and it was like, That is not what she said at all, and what she did say goes exactly with what the defense has been saying all along. To make it simple, you normally don't get a Perry Mason moment. This is a Perry Mason moment. Here's the thing. If Bev doesn't allow this in, then she has to allow it in. There's no way she couldn't. I'm not even going to say if she doesn't. There's no way she couldn't. This is incredibly, incredibly qualified, and most importantly, not most importantly, equally as important, they are not hired by the defense, and they are not hired by the Commonwealth. They are not after a conviction. They are not after an acquittal. They are after the truth, which is the only thing we are after. And if they are not allowed to testify and tell the jury what they know, then that's total BS. I have faith. They'll allow it. I'll allow it. That was huge to me. That was huge to me.
I'm just going to ask you to be mindful of the court and step up. You're going to remain standing.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court in the case now and here and the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Gotcha.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Certainly. Dr. Andrew John Renschler, Renschler.
Sir, what do you do for a living?
I am a biomechanical engineer and accident reconstructionist.
In what area of the country do you live in?
I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
What is your title currently at your company?
I am a vice president and director of biomechanics for the Midwest Division.
And what is the name of that company?
It's called ARCCA, LLC.
And what is the main mission of ARCCA? What does ARCCA do?
So ARCCA is an engineering consulting company, and we have several different types of engineers, biomechanical engineers such as myself, accident reconstructionists, mechanical engineers. We look at crash worthiness, safety of vehicles, and other types of events. So we really do all types of work. We do litigation type work, as well as research and development for government and private entities as well.
Let me have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes. What is this one's name? I had to answer my doctor's office.
Can you give me a brief synopsis of the professional discipline of injury causation biomechanics? What is that?
So injury causation biomechanics is really applying traditional engineering principles to the human body. So as a biomechanical engineer, I look at the response of the body to accelerations and forces and determine how an injury occurs. You know, an injury to the human body is just an engineering problem. For instance, a mechanical engineer might look at a piece of steel and you know the size of the steel and the shape of it, and if you apply a force in a certain direction, that steel will bend and eventually break. Well, we do the same thing, but we look at the human body. How much force do you have to apply, and how does that force have to be applied in what direction or manner to get a specific injury, whether it's a skull fracture, an intervertebral disc injury, a concussion. So we look at the response of the human body to different forces and accelerations in different types of settings. And ultimately, our hope is to help mitigate or prevent injuries, whether it's in a motor vehicle accident, sports setting, industrial setting, auto pedestrian impact, try and make products and environments safer for individuals.
And that's different from what medical doctors do, correct?
It is, yes, sir.
A little boy walks into an ER with a broken arm. The medical doctor wants to reset the arm and fix the arm, correct?
That's right, yes.
What does a biomechanical engineer want to learn about the broken arm?
We want to learn how that break or that fracture occurs. I always say that we kind of approach injuries from two different directions. You have an injury occur. After it occurs, moving forward, that's when the medical doctors get involved. They diagnose the injury, determine the best way to treat it, what's the prognosis. As a biomechanical engineer, I kind of take the reverse direction. We look at, here's the injury, here's what's diagnosed. Well, how did that injury occur? You know, how much force do you have to apply to cause that fracture? How did the bone have to be loaded? How did it bend to actually cause a specific type of fracture? So we really kind of approach the injury from two different directions.
Understood. And given that scientific approach, oftentimes you can come to conclusions and opinions, scientific conclusions and opinions about the causation of an injury, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what biomechanical engineering is how does an injury occur? Why did it occur? And in what type of setting did the injury actually occur? What type of loading and what type of kinematics do you need to have this injury actually occur?
Can you tell the court brief synopsis on the discipline of human factors. What part does that play in what you do for a living?
Well, human factors is a large part of it as well. I mean, from a biomechanical standpoint, we look at the body, we have to know anatomy, we have to know the makeup of the body, and then human factors plays a part of it as well, as how individuals respond or what their response is to different types of environments or reactions. It really all plays into looking at a specific event. How did someone react? How did their body move? How was the body loaded? There's all different types of factors that you have to apply. The human factors, kinematics, kinetics, biomechanical, musculoskeletal interactions. It's all these different factors that are really involved in performing an analysis to ultimately look at injury causation.
Doctor, as the Director of Biomechanics and Human Factors at ARCCA, what education, training, and background qualifies you to perform those duties?
Well, I got my Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering with a minor in Biomedical Engineering from Carnegie Mellon University in 1995. I then went on to get my Master's in Bioengineering and Biomechanics from the University of Pittsburgh in 2002. And then I got my PhD or my doctorate in Bioengineering and Biomechanics from the University of Pittsburgh in 2004.
Can you give us a brief work history up to and before ARCCA?
Sure. So I got my PhD in 2004, and then since then I've worked in the consulting field for biomechanics. I've worked for a company out in Davis, California for a while called Biomechanical Engineering Accident Reconstruction. I then joined another engineering company in Jacksonville, Florida for about 3 years called Chesapeake Engineering and Design. And I have now been with ARCCA for approximately 16 and a half years.
And in those positions and in your position currently as a director at ARCCA, do you specialize in research and analysis attendant to evaluating and studying the relationships between crash injuries, crash forces, human kinematics, and human tolerances?
I do. I mean, that's really what I do on a daily basis, whether it be in litigation type cases or the research and development we do for different companies or entities or even internal research that we perform at ARCCA.
Doctor, what professional associations and accreditations do you have?
I'm a member of the American Society for Mechanical Engineers, as well as the Society for Automotive Engineering. With respect to biomechanical engineering, there's no actual professional licensure for biomechanical engineering. So a PhD or a doctorate is the highest degree you can have in that field.
Are you also a reviewer for archives of physical medicine and rehabilitation and biomechanical engineering online?
I am, yes. Usually if you publish articles in a journal, usually that journal comes back to you and asks you to be a reviewer. So I certainly do that type of work as well.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about your ongoing education, your professional education after your PhD. Have you continued your education in areas of biomechanics and high-impact injuries from the NTSB?
I have. I've taken classes through the NTSB and SAE, the IPTM, Police Technology Management Training Center. There's several different entities I've taken biomechanical and accident reconstruction courses through.
So the alphabet soup, if you will, of biomechanical engineering and human factors.
Right, yes.
And you continue that today?
I do, yes, sir.
Any specific training in human kinematics?
Yes, I do have training in human kinematics.
Just out of curiosity, how would you define what is kinematics?
So kinematics is the motion of the human body and looking at how the body moves. And it's irrelevant or irrespective of the forces that cause that motion. So we're really looking at, for instance, how one body part moves with respect to the next. We can see how the body moves as a result of a specific type of event.
You mentioned injury mechanics previously in one of your answers. What is injury mechanics and how does that relate to biomechanics?
So again, that's a subset of biomechanics looking at the response and the strength of the different parts of tissue of the human body. On a very basic level, to get an injury or have an injury occur, you need really two factors. You need enough force to cause injury to the tissue, and you need that force applied in the right manner. So if I wanted to fracture my elbow, I certainly couldn't take a hit on my shoulder and expect my elbow to fracture. Its force is exerted in the wrong location. And likewise, if I just lean my elbow on the counter here, that's not enough force. So you need the force and you need the application of that force in the correct manner to produce what we call an injury mechanism.
And have you ever participated in any studies or research in this area? In addition to your dissertation, getting your PhD, what about additional studies and research in this general area?
I have, yes, sir.
Can you describe that for us briefly?
Certainly. Well, just at ARCCA, I've worked with the United States military. We worked on the design of the MRAP vehicles, the mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles over in Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's a troop carrier, correct?
That's correct, yes. And the issue there is they go over the IED, the improvised explosive device, and it blows the vehicle up off the ground. So you're getting very large forces and accelerations through the vehicle, through the seat, into the soldier's spines. So we're seeing very traumatic and severe spinal and head injuries. So at ARCCA, we work on what we call an energy-absorbing seat design. So when the vehicle gets blown off the ground, that seat is...
I have it on 1.25 because I was trying to catch up where we had paused it to talk. Is it too fast? I can go back to normal if it's too fast for y'all.
Designed to absorb the force and the energy to protect the soldier's spine and their head.
Did you take part in the design of that seat?
I did, yes, sir.
Has that been employed by the Department of Defense?
Yes, it has been.
And are troops utilizing that new seat design, that safety seat design, in that troop carrier to this day?
As far as I know, it's from what they'll tell us, yes, sir.
Understood. Are you also published in this field, Doctor?
I am, yes.
Can you give us a couple of examples of current studies that you're involved in or publications that you've done in the recent past concerning bioengineering and the impact or the association that it has with human factors?
Sure. I mean, and another project I'm working on is we work with the NHL, actually, at ARCCA. We have an ongoing, we have an ongoing relationship with the Department of Player Safety. For instance, we helped redesign part of the rink. In every arena, they had at the end of the player area, there was basically a 90-degree stanchion where the glass met. And so players were kind of getting checked down in the boards and then hitting up against the glass. And actually, somewhat ironically, it was Chara hitting Pacioretty into the glass in the Boston-Montreal game and caused a cervical fracture and concussion. And the NHL came to us to see if we could have a redesign of the rink to make it a little safer. So we took crash test dummies, anthropomorphic test device, which you've probably seen on TV, the automotive manufacturers use them all the time, and threw them into different configurations of glass. And now in every arena in the NHL, it is basically a curved piece of spring-loaded Lexan or plexiglass, where the players now, they hit into it, it absorbs the impact, and they glance off of the glass.
Is that a design that you helped come up with?
It is, yes.
So both from the United States military as well as professional sporting leagues, they've come to you to help save lives, lower risk.
That's right, mitigate and prevent injuries, yes, sir.
What about crash and sled testing?
Yeah, I've performed a number of crash and sled tests. When you look at any vehicle that's driven in the United States, it has to pass federal motor vehicle safety standards. There's federal regulations that they have to pass. And part of that involves running the vehicle into a wall at 35 miles an hour, hitting it from behind, rollover type impacts. And they have these crash test dummies in those vehicles. So we perform a lot of testing for different cases and situations where we put that dummy in the vehicle and we evaluate the safety system, whether it's the lap and shoulder belt or if it's the airbag or the seatbelt pretensioner, determine how to make the car safer. And part of that is looking at the force that's exerted on that dummy, because there's tolerance values. We know how much force it takes to cause specific injuries. So we want to make sure in certain instances, at certain speeds or impacts, that if someone's in an accident, the force acting on, say, their head or their neck or their chest is going to be below these established tolerance values.
Speaking of how much force it takes to cause an injury to a human body, have you engaged in any testing or published in the field of auto-pedestrian incidents?
Yes, I've been involved in a number of studies where we're looking at auto-pedestrian type impacts. Again, a lot of times we'll utilize the crash test dummy where we'll set it up and we'll actually have it struck by different vehicles or different objects to look at the response of the body. It's very important if you're talking about an auto-ped type impact. You have to know the configuration of the pedestrian, the vehicle, where they hit on the vehicle, whether it's a projection type impact, a wrap, fender vault. It really all depends on how the person's positioned and the amount of force and speed involved in that type of an impact.
And staying with that for a second, that basic subject matter, have you also engaged in studies related to slips and falls where somebody might fall from a standing position and injure themselves, either their head, shoulders, whatever, and those kinds of injury impacts?
I have, yes. And I mean, one of the issues we look at it there is a lot of people fall, especially elderly people. So we want to look at what types of forces are being produced. You look at hip fractures, if you slip and fall backwards, head fractures. So we're trying to determine how to prevent those falls from happening and also create devices or products that can help actually prevent injuries if someone does take a fall.
Doctor, have you been retained as an expert in the area of biomechanical engineering and human factors in the past?
I have, yes, sir.
May I approach you, Honor?
Yes.
Can you take a look at that document and tell me if you recognize it?
This is a list of my deposition and trial testimony.
Your Honor, I provided that to the court this morning.
Yes, I appreciate it. I had a chance to look at it.
Okay. That's about I don't want to go through everything. That's about a 14-page document. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Let me just ask it this way. How many times do you think you've been qualified as an expert in the field or testified as an expert in the field of biomechanics, biomechanical engineering, and human factors?
I've testified probably over 150 times in numerous state, federal, civil, and criminal courts throughout the country.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. May I approach?
Yes.
The purpose is what here, Your Honor, I would ask that this document be marked.
Sure.
Thank you. Have you ever testified in criminal court as an expert in biomechanical engineering?
I have, yes.
How recently have you testified in criminal court?
Well, actually, I've testified twice. The end of May, I think May 31st, I testified in McKean County, Pennsylvania. For the prosecution, it was a case where the defendant was accused of beating his girlfriend to death and basically said that she fell down the steps. So my testimony involved determining how her injuries occurred and that they were entirely inconsistent with what would have happened during a stair fall.
What about another case?
And then about a week after that, around June 6th or 7th, I testified in Cambria County, Pennsylvania, again for the prosecution for another homicide case where the defendant was accused of essentially beating his wife to death, and then said that she actually fell backwards and struck her head, caused a skull fracture on the side of the sink. So my testimony, again, pertained to looking at the injury mechanisms and determining that his story of her falling back and striking her head on the sink, it's inconsistent with the injuries and the type of force that would have been exerted in that case.
In both of those murder cases, you were hired or retained by the prosecution in the case, not by the defense, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
You make your opinions in furtherance of the prosecution's case in chief, not the defense case in chief, correct?
That's correct, yes.
With regard to this case, you were asked to look at several items. We've already gone over those in the other testimony, so I won't belabor that. You were asked to look at several items, correct?
I was, yes.
And ultimately, based on that series of information, that universe of information that you were provided, see if you could come to an opinion and conclusion concerning the incident before the court now, correct?
That's right. See if I could determine what happened, how the injuries occurred, and the events leading up to and during that process.
Without going into your conclusions and opinions, were you able to come to conclusions and opinions to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
I was, yes, sir.
You were not hired by the defense, by me, or anybody on the defense side in this case, correct?
That's correct. I was not.
You were not consulted with or hired by the Commonwealth either?
That's correct. I was not.
It was a completely independent agency, is that right?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Before this morning, have you and I ever met?
No, sir.
And you and I have never talked about the substance of your opinion and conclusion, correct?
We have not. That's correct.
You did reduce those opinions and conclusions in conjunction with your team to a report, is that right?
I did, yes, sir.
And your understanding is that report was made available both to the defense and the Commonwealth in this case, is that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I have nothing further to add.
Okay, Mr. Lally?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good guys.
Just a few questions for you, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Now, with relation to your work in this instance, in this case, were there any limitations as far as confidentiality or anything that were put on you or any of your team?
What do you mean by confidentiality?
As far as who, what, where, and how you could discuss what you did?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly we just discussed with who we were retained by in this case. I don't believe I discussed the case with anybody else except for my cohorts who were also involved in the case.
And so my question, sir, more is geared towards, at some point you were made aware that your report and your findings were made available to both the prosecution and the defense in this case, correct?
I was made aware of that, yes, sir.
And when you were made aware of that, was there any limitations on given to you as far as who you could discuss your report, your findings, or anything with?
Yeah, basically given the direction or the request that I don't actually discuss the substance of my opinions or my report with anybody aside from who we were originally retained to work for.
Now, may I approach you, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, I am going to show you the first couple pages of your report, specifically right down the bottom. There's a list of items 1 through 14. I ask you to just review those before you finish.
Okay.
Now, is that the totality of information that you and your firm were provided with in reference to what you did in this case?
I believe it was, yes, sir.
So nothing beyond that list of 14 things did you have occasion to look at, review, or have any opportunity to see at any time?
Well, aside from we did do testing in this case, so we did do other
Aside
work.
from your independent testing, I'm asking as far as material provided by whoever employed you, that is a sum and total of what you received, correct?
I believe that would be correct, yes, sir.
And did you personally review each of those 14 items? Because, and I don't fault you or your company for this, but within the report there's a lot of we. So what I'm asking is, did you personally review each of those 14 items that are listed in that report?
I did personally review every bit and every page of information that was provided in this case, yes, sir.
And to be clear, just to sort of close the loop on this, when it comes to those 14 items, were you allowed to ask for any additional items, or was it just you were limited to this is what you have, go form an opinion?
There may have been discussion about if there's other information available, but I believe ultimately that we rendered our opinions obviously just on this specific information that was provided to us.
Now, as far as your opinion in your report, when was that issued?
February 12th of 2024.
So that date on the top of the report of February 12th, 2024, that's when you sent the report to the people that contracted you to do the analysis in the first place?
That's correct, yes, sir.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
I want them to testify right now. I want them to tell me everything.
Now, am I correct? And what I'm trying to ascertain here, Doctor, is just sort of the different roles that you and the other members of your team performed in reference to this. Am I correct in that your primary role in this pertained to the sort of biomechanical engineering analysis of injuries sustained by Mr. O'Keefe?
That would be correct, yes, sir.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but Dr. Wolfe would have been more responsible for issues related to the vehicle itself.
Generally speaking, yes, that would be correct.
Obviously, there's some interaction between damage to the vehicle and injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, but as far as your primary sort of any opinions contained within this report pertaining to injuries to Mr. O'Keefe, those would be your opinions, correct?
Yes, any opinions or information with respect to the injuries would be my purview and my opinions in this matter, yes, sir.
And concomitantly, so any opinions related to damage to the motor vehicle, those would be opinions of Dr. Wolfe, is that right?
FBI.
Well, to some extent. I mean, certainly I would have opinions as well based on the interaction or alleged interaction between the body and, for instance, the vehicle in this case, and what damage to both the body as well as the vehicle you would expect. So I think there's basically some overlap between those issues. I wouldn't say that it's a complete separation.
And so, and again, Doctor, what your opinions or ultimate conclusions are, whether they be yours or Dr. Wolfe's or a combination of the two, it's all limited based on the information and the evidence that you received, correct?
It certainly is based on the information that we reviewed and listed in our report, yes, sir.
Now, as far as sort of a mandate or from the agency that hired you, were you asked to answer a specific question, or were you asked to just do an analysis based on what we sent you, or how was that put to you as far as what you were doing?
There was a specific request that we were asked to perform and to evaluate in this case.
And specifically what I'm asking, sir, is there's an analysis in there of whether or not the injuries to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head could have been caused from contact with the vehicle, correct?
That is part of my analysis and opinions, yes, sir.
And were you specifically asked to address or answer that question by the agency that hired you?
That was one of the questions I was specifically asked, yes, sir.
I have nothing further.
Anything further, Mr. Jackson?
Your Honor, thank you.
All right, so, Doctor, I have a couple of questions for you, sir. So regarding the specific request, what were you tasked to do specifically?
So specifically overall, I was tasked from the biomechanical standpoint to determine or see if it's possible to determine how the injuries in this case occurred. And part of that was determine whether the injuries, the head injury and the arm injuries resulted from contact with the Lexus in this case.
Okay. And regarding all of your prior testimony, a good deal of it seems to be in depositions. Any of those in Massachusetts?
There's a couple, I believe. I've testified at trial in Massachusetts,
Okay.
Middlesex Superior Court.
Do you know where that might be? I do want to look at that.
I can find it for you, maybe a couple of months ago.
Was it in a criminal case or a civil case?
Oh, it was in civil case. I
Okay.
think, let's see here. Yeah, so let's see. There was one November 14th, 15th, 2023, Middlesex Superior Court. That was probably the most recent one.
Hey, what number is that on there, if I want to go back and look at it?
That is number 310.
Thank you. Is there another Massachusetts case?
Oh, I'm sure there are, because I know there's some from earlier in my career. Let me see. See if I can find them for you real quickly here.
I don't know why they're treating him like that. I could.
So there's Connecticut. Those with Louisiana.
I feel like she has to let them in. I don't know that she's going to let I don't know if she's going to let Dr. Russell in. We'll see.
Oh, there's 68. I'm gonna butcher it. Worcester.
Is that a civil or criminal case, doctor?
That is a civil case as well.
Okay. What year was that?
Oh, that one was 2012.
Okay. Any others that you think of or you see?
There may have been a couple others. I don't recall off the top.
All right, I'll go through it more closely. I
Sure.
appreciate you saving me some time.
Absolutely.
All right, any questions based on my questions?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
No.
All right, you are all set, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I want these two more than anybody. I want to hear what they have to say.
All right, so Mr. Lally, I will hear you on your motion. Now, we didn't get into the ultimate opinions and the basis for that opinion, but I'll hear you on your motion.
Your Honor, essentially what Commonwealth was seeking and had been seeking was just in reference to that, as far as who did what and who was responsible for what and what were the items reviewed, and is that the totality of it? There's a date on the report. I don't know if that was the date as far as when it was filed, when it was opinion was rendered, when that was provided, what was provided to them in the course of their analysis. So I think very simply what the Commonwealth had been seeking for the most part was covered today.
Okay. All right, I have some questions as to the scope of the testimony of the witnesses. So, Mr. Jackson, you intend to have them testify consistently with the report, everything covered in the report?
Correct.
And the conclusions, all 4 conclusions in the report?
Correct.
All right, Mr. Lally, what's your take on this?
Oh, that's ought to be good.
I do have an issue with number 4. I don't think they're qualified to testify to. I don't think either of them is qualified to testify to that. That's more of an area of forensic pathology.
What do you say to that, Mr. Jackson?
Number 4 is, their opinion is, there is currently insufficient evidence to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's skull and brain injuries or the circumstances surrounding the event. That is well within the scope of their expertise. Obviously, I don't think I have to beat this dead horse. They are highly, highly qualified to render all 4 opinions. And if the evidence in their opinion, their expert opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, which is what's evidenced here by the report, is that there is insufficient evidence to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, then that is an opinion that they are well within it's well within the scope of what they can testify to. That's their opinion, that's their conclusion. Mr. Lally is going to have an expert, Trooper Paul, who is going to differ, or who has differed in that opinion. So be it.
And I would have kept it out. Remember, I would have kept out any medical part had there been an objection. And when you objected, I sustained the objection.
No, I think we're talking about 2 different things, apples and oranges. That's not, Trooper Paul's opinion is that his injury, or his injuries, or I think he said variously that it was blunt force that could have come from the curb, or it was blunt force because the road is blunt. That was his opinion, and he was sticking to it. This is contrary to that. Both of these individuals have come to the conclusion and opinion that the evidence is insufficient to support that determination, and it's well within their purview to testify to that.
Your Honor, if I may, I don't think that's their actual opinion. I initially didn't think of it in these terms as it's phrased on the cover page of the report. If you look at the actual opinion
I
and
was looking at
findings,
the last page. Are they the same on the front and the back?
I think the front is a little more definitive and concerning. The back, I think, more as to it's consistent with a whole multitude of different things. So the fact that I don't really think that's an opinion at all, to be honest with you.
All right, I'll take a look at this more closely, give you a decision Thursday. All right, I did not expect it to go this quickly. We could have had the jury here, but I'm sure you all could use the afternoon to prepare. All right, Mr. Lally, let me know Thursday if you need, are you ready to go forward at least with your case on Thursday?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Let me know Thursday if you need additional time. If I let Dr. Russell testify, how that impacts our schedule.
Absolutely, Your Honor.
All right, but I don't want that to be a concern of yours, how it impacts the schedule. That's my concern, I just need to know. All right, so anything else?
For the Commonwealth.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you Thursday morning.
Court will rise.
All right. I am not sad about them ending early today because I feel like crap. Oh God. I'm still waiting on medicine to kick in. I don't think that she's going to let Dr. Russell in. I think that she is definitely going to let the two doctors from ARCCA in, Wolfe and Andrew, because they were on the list ahead of time. Dr. Marie Russell was added in late. She already sounded like she didn't really want to. But also, I don't know that I don't know that it would be a huge deal. I don't know that they need Dr. Marie Russell in anyway. Dr. Marie Russell is going to be giving opinions on the same thing that their medical examiner is going to be giving it on. So, I want so badly to hear the testimony of Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Renschler, because those are the two who I think will have the most credibility in all of this. I want to hear exactly what they can conclude and what they can't conclude. It's interesting, the only little snippet that we got in about that was where Trooper Paul said that the head injury was blunt force trauma caused by the road or the curb. They're saying that there's not enough information to determine that. I am still a little bit. I want to hear it all. I want to hear it all. To me, this is so much more important than a Google search or, flirty text messages or fighting with somebody in Aruba. This is what the case is. Did her car hit John O'Keefe? This is what the case is. I need to hear from them. One of the things that has been, I said this the other day when they were talking about the Google search. The Google search is what originally got me interested in this, but then as I started digging in, it became less of a part of a decision maker for me. Yeah, proving that it happened at 2:27 would go toward reasonable doubt, but proving, like, depending on, and I'm waiting, like I said, I'm waiting till the very end. I want to hear all witnesses, all experts waiting, but if I come out of it having heard all experts on it and decide I believe it did happen, or if I hear all experts and believe that it didn't happen, that to me is not going to impact, it's not going to change my vote to a guilty vote. But this is the part to me that is the most crucial, because I don't know that if they don't tell me that they can understand how those injuries came from that car as a pedestrian strike, then there's no chance of getting over that reasonable doubt hump for me. So, happy birthday, Wendy K. Happy birthday. And they are the most credible. Oh, gosh. I'm going to be Petty Betty for a minute. I'm going to be Petty Betty for a minute. I'm going to go full screen Petty Betty for a minute. Hearing Lally talk about the credibility and qualifications of Dr. Renschler and Dr. Wolfe after putting Trooper Paul up there was one of the most Lally things that I think I've seen during this whole trial. It was, Lord help him. Lord help him. Lord. He said, Lindsay Hendricks said, I audibly laughed when he said they weren't qualified on whatever point number 4 was. What's so funny about that is that point number 4 is going against what Trooper Paul said. So he's saying that Trooper Paul, hold on, let me gather my inner strength to even get this sentence out. He's saying that Trooper Paul was qualified to give that determination, but Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Renschler, who were hired from ARCCA by the FBI and have testified in over 150 cases, and obviously, y'all. Bless him. Bless him. I feel bad for Trooper Paul. I do. But y'all, it is not Trooper Paul's fault. That is not Trooper Paul's fault. That is Lally's fault. Lally should not have him up there as an expert in things that he's not an expert in. Period. To say that injuries were caused by a taillight is absolutely ludicrous. I was expecting, I texted Dr. Kinsey. I'm gonna text Dr. Kinsey again and ask him if he wants to come on. I would love to hear his thoughts, maybe while we're on Verdict Watch or something. I would love to hear his thoughts after both sides give their reconstruction analysis, because I texted him one of the things that he and I had talked about when I interviewed him for the podcast episode is that, injuries on the arm and what he thinks they could be caused by. And one of the things that we talked about is it not being caused by glass or the taillight. The abrasions on the arm, when I was texting Dr. Kinsey the other night, he said that Dr. Kinsey specifically said, when I was texting the other night, he specifically said, hold on, I don't want to read it wrong. I told y'all this the other day, but for anybody who wasn't here, I don't want to read it wrong. He said, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never seen that kind of injury alone come from a plastic lens. Never seen that kind of injury alone come from a plastic lens. So this whole time, he said, I would believe it would have to be friction from something under the vehicle or something on the ground, like a landing spot. But but he said, and as many, reconstructions as he's done and as qualified as he is, I if he tells me he doesn't think it came from a plastic lens, I don't think it did either. And he's always said, like any expert is going to give an opinion, and opinions can be different. Different experts can look at the same thing and give a different opinion. But I see it the same way he does. I don't see how it could do that. And I kept thinking during this trial, I was like, if they're able to match up that on his arm with something underneath the car, then it would be more believable. But they never did that. And when they tested under the car, there was nothing under there. The demonstration alone about the amount of force and the body part is enough to make me want to hear what he says. Yeah, he sounds just incredibly knowledgeable about it. I want to know. I want to know the exact measurement between each of the two lines the doctor pointed out in those 3 spots. If uniform spacing there says a lot. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I want to hear it all. My thing is I am not. There are some people who are just waiting and hoping for a conviction. There are some people who are waiting and hoping for an acquittal. I am just waiting and hoping for my questions to be answered and to hopefully find. I think we'll never know the full truth. I think that the investigation was such crap. That there's a lot of things that we'll never know because of that. There's a lot of things we'll never know because there were no witnesses that we know of. But I don't care about a conviction. I don't care about an acquittal. I care about the truth. And I feel like these two, Dr. Renschler and Dr. Wolfe, are going to be the closest that we can get to a potential truth, because they're not going to be able to tell us what happened because they weren't there, but they can tell us what's possible and what's not. And that's what I really want to know. Ricky Watts said there won't be no DNA under her SUV because it was snowing. Oh, was it snowing, Ricky Watson? Have they proved that beyond a reasonable doubt? We know it was snowing and there was a band. I am like this gave me excitement to be able to hear these two fellas testify. I don't think that she's going to let Dr. Marie Russell in. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think that she's going to let Dr. Marie Russell in. I think that she is definitely going to let Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Renschler in because they were already on the list. I think that if the opinion given by Trooper Paul was allowed in, then there ain't no reason that the opinion for number 4 by Wolfe and Renschler won't be let in. But I cannot wait to hear what they have to say. But I don't think she's going to let Dr. Marie Russell in, but I could totally be wrong. But we'll see. That's my prediction. She'll say no on Russell, and then everything from the other two will be allowed in. If she doesn't let Wolfe and Renschler's stuff in, then that just is a blatant disregard for trying to find the truth, in my opinion. And guess what? I'm allowed to have an opinion. I would understand. I would understand not allowing Dr. Russell in. I can understand that one. But also, I don't really think it's necessary because she's going to be confirming a lot of the opinions that their medical examiner is going to say anyway. So I don't think it's necessary for the defense's case. But the way that she was talking even with Lally having so many late pieces of discovery, I could see it. These guys are way more crucial. I agree. Because to me, it's like you have Dr. Russell who's trying to give her expert opinion that these injuries could have been from Chloe, which goes for the defense's theory. But more importantly, Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Renschler, because remember, defense doesn't have to prove that Chloe had anything to do with it, or that Jen McCabe Googled how long to die, or that Higgins and Brian Albert or Colin or anybody else had anything to do with it. They don't have to prove any of that. All that has to happen is that the Commonwealth has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And if Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Renschler get up here and say that those injuries are not consistent with the car, it doesn't matter, and nothing else matters. Literally nothing else matters. That's it. That's reasonable doubt. If you have two independently hired experts hired through a federal investigation saying this don't add up, then Chloe in Vermont and Higgins and his weed whacker and nothing else matters. That's it. So interesting. Point number 4 on their report. Lindsay, go back and listen. If you rewind, he says what it is. Jackson reads what it is. It was something like that it was, hold on. That it was insufficient evidence.
Part was covered today.
Okay. All right. I have some questions as to
It was insufficient
the
evidence
scope of the testimony of the
insufficient evidence to determine the
witness.
Hold on, he read it.
So,
Jackson read it.
Qualified to testify to. I don't think either of them is qualified.
Jackson.
I don't think either of them is. Sorry. This is what it is. He reads it.
Evidence to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe. 4 is their opinion is there is currently insufficient evidence to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's skull and brain injury.
Their opinion. Hold on. Can you hear it? I wanted to write it down, but I just can't. Hold on. Oh, I can just clip it. Hold on.
Is there is currently insufficient evidence to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's skull and brain injuries or the circumstances surrounding the event. That is well within the scope of their expertise. Obviously,
that was it. Which is really funny. Like,
surrounding evidence to determine. Number 4 is their opinion is there is currently insufficient evidence to determine the cause.
There's currently insufficient evidence
Mr. O'Keefe's skull and brain
to determine the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's brain and skull. So it goes against what Trooper Paul said. So Lally thinks that Trooper Paul is qualified to give that opinion. But these two fellas aren't.
Injuries or the circumstances surrounding the event.
Or the circumstances surrounding the event. So I feel bad for Trooper Paul. I feel bad for Trooper. The good news is he is a bald trooper. And apparently in the Boston area there are about 11 other bald troopers. So he'll just blend right in and it'll be fine. Nobody will know. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. He'll be okay. That was not his fault. That was Lally's fault. Yeah, Lally said because of forensic pathology. Look, Lally's okay with Buchnick getting up there and giving his medical expertise, but not these two actual doctors. Okay, Lally. Okay. Yes, Trooper Buchnick, please, by all means, tell us your medical opinion on the pooling of blood and the abrasions to the epidermis of the skin in a parallel fashion. But no, these doctors are not qualified to say there's not sufficient evidence. Can we just... Lally, let's get it together, Lally. Lally has Buchnick up there telling us what caused the injuries to John O'Keefe's eye, or the swelling to John O'Keefe's eyes. But he's going to tell us that these two overly qualified doctors can't tell us that their opinion is there's not enough evidence to determine. Okay. All right, Lally. Look, Norfolk County is about to rehome Lally too. Lally's gonna be a meteorologist when this is over. He sure does let us know when it's snowing. So at least there's that. Lally's gonna go to Vermont. Lally and Chloe gonna go live their best lives together. Sleeping in the crate or a closet upstairs. Alright, I don't feel good. I'm going to bed. I'm gonna try to take a nap so that I can wake up and finish the podcast episode for the week. I'm behind on it because I've had so much going on. They're gonna rehome Lally. Let me stop being petty, Betty. Okay, this is what happens when I don't feel good. All right, y'all. I appreciate you hanging out. Thank you for sticking it out with me, even though today was a rough day and wasn't feeling great. I was this close to canceling the stream, but I'm glad that I didn't. I'm glad that we watched it. I'm gonna lay down, see if I can get to feeling a little bit better so I can work on the podcast. Tomorrow is an off day. Oh, but tomorrow I'm going to be on a panel talking Karen Reed stuff tomorrow evening. I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern on Broken Baker's channel. It's going to be some of us who've been covering the case all getting together and talking about it. So it'll be me. I don't even know who else he has. Let me see. I think he messaged me a little bit ago. I know Runkle's going to be on there. Maybe Melanie Little, I think, but I know it'll be, I know I'm on there. And I know Runkle's on there. Let's see who else. Let's see if he's put it on there yet. But it's tomorrow night at 8. Panel discussion with YouTubers covering the case. Let's see if he's got it listed on here. Who's on there? I'll give you the... Valhalla awaits. Me, Ian Runkle, attorney Melanie Little, and the Young Jerks. Here, I'll copy the link. So here, I'm going to put the link in chat. So everybody go hit notify me, because I will be on there tomorrow. That'll be a lot of fun. I love hearing. Y'all go hit notify me. I love hearing from, talking to other people covering this case, especially the ones that are nice. I love. Oh, who was it that was asking me last week about? There were two of y'all in chat, and I cannot remember who it was, and I'm sorry. They were asking about who to go. Like you were wanting to see some of the. You were wanting to see some of the opinions of people who were convinced on guilt. I tried to watch a couple of them this weekend, and I know one of you did too, and you messaged me. And went in there, like, as soon as you went in there, they were talking crap about me. A couple of y'all messaged me about it, that when you walked in there, they were talking crap about me and stuff, which is fine. You know, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But I did try to listen to a few, because I was trying to find some for y'all who, like, the people who are convinced of guilt that are able to do it respectfully. I just haven't found any of that yet. But also, the ones who are convinced of guilt before the trial is over, when there's this many questions, I had a lot of attorneys that were like, because I asked on Twitter for recommendations, and I had a lot of attorneys that were like, there's nobody who should be convinced of guilt yet. Like, you know, that's not how the Constitution works, and that's not how and now, you know, like, this is not one of those cases where we're going into it where, like, there's no question, you know, like, this is not a shabusiness type case or whatever. Like, this is so, which with her, technically it wasn't whether or not she did it, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So, and I was like, I get that, but I was like, I had people asking in chat who, you know, were just wanting to hear, like, the opinions of people who were convinced because they wanted to understand. And I did try to listen a little bit to some people, but, like, I have not been able to find people who have done so respectfully, and I don't want to send y'all to any chats where they're just being rude. So, I not my thing. But I did try for y'all. I can't remember who it was that was asking me Friday, but I did try for y'all. Yeah, no, a couple of y'all sent that to me. I didn't listen to all of it. I heard them trashing me for a couple of minutes, and I was like, bless them. Yeah, it's irrelevant. I like hearing different arguments, but I like to hear the arguments on the facts, not on other people. No court tomorrow. We'll be back on Thursday. Thursday's a full day, Friday is a half day. So no court tomorrow. Thursday full day, Friday half day. And then I'm not sure yet on next week's schedule. But y'all, we could be the finish line is like coming. The finish line is like right there. It's coming. It's coming. We're getting so close. Does it feel like 842 years ago since we heard like the Kolokithis? You know, I'm on a panel tonight. What panel am I on tonight? I thought I was just on one Thursday. Is it tonight? What am I on tonight? Tomorrow night I'm on Broken Baker. Thursday I'm on What do I have Thursday? I have something Thursday at 6. What do I have Thursday at 6? I have something. I need a personal assistant. I'm still on the fence. What is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Be on the fence. Listen to everything. Take it all in. Weigh the evidence as it comes. Take the evidence that you think, matters and give it more weight than the other things. Like, talk about it respectfully. There's nothing wrong with that. That is amazing. That's great. That's commendable. I love the people who can discuss the evidence as it comes and say this works for this, prosecution, or this works for this defense, or this is kind of a wash and doesn't really work for either, or whatever. Like, I think that, and we try to do that as much as possible here. Talk about each piece of individual evidence and weigh it and discuss it. Because there are some things that I give more weight to than I do others. And that's what I was saying, like this, hearing these reconstructionists give their information is going to give, that to me will have a lot more weight than, like a fight in Aruba or, anything like that. So, I find it hard to believe she would be at lunch with the prosecution at Applebee's. Who was at Applebee's? Applebee's on a date night. Oh, have you considered covering Brian Walsh's trial in the fall? Yes. I have my analytics for the podcast have been very, obviously because I'm covering a Boston area thing. I have a lot of locals to Boston and Canton area. Like, Boston is my number one city right now. And I've had a lot of people reaching out with different things in the area to show different levels of corruption. I've had a lot of people ask me to cover, on the podcast, cover Sandra Birchmore, which I plan on looking into. I've had people asking me to cover Brian Walsh. And then also, this was sent to me the other night. Hold on. Have y'all heard of this? Let me... have you heard of Justin Root? Have y'all heard of Justin Root? Brian Walsh has some of the same troopers involved. Sandra Birchmore does too. Somebody sent me this the other night, and I was like, wait, what? This was the first I'd seen of it, and I have not had a chance to look much into it yet, but this is one that immediately piqued my interest because, well, you'll see why. Man killed by police in Brookline after Chase was unarmed when he died, according to the family. So Root's family says he suffered from mental health issues. He was shot over 31 times despite not being in possession of a weapon. Now, he was in the parking lot of the hospital. And I don't know who it was that sent me. I have to go back and look. He was in the hospital parking lot when all of this started. Okay, so they said that he was killed in Brookline this year after a wild chase. They filed a wrongful death lawsuit, which I've got it on my notes that I want to pull those documents and look through it. claiming the authorities used excessive force and violated his civil rights. So he was fatally shot by police in February after leading officers on a chase. So it started in the hospital parking lot, and then he left. They chased him. The chase began after authorities say he brandished a weapon that was not a working firearm. Turns out it was like a BB gun or something. He had I think in his car he had like a BB gun and a paintball gun or something, but he didn't have like an actual firearm. Outside the hospital. Okay, during the incident, a valet at the hospital was shot by a Boston police officer. According to the suit, Root was shot over 31 times in a parking lot area along Route 9 and was defenseless and semi-comatose and bleeding profusely at the time. He was not brandishing a weapon at the time that he was shot. The truth must be told about how Justin was shot. Jennifer Root Bannon, Root's sister and special administrator of his estate. The officers and trooper must be held accountable for their egregious actions and misconduct, unloading their weapons and shooting 31 times while he was on the ground. I started looking into it a little bit, and I read that like they were congratulating each other on the body cam. You could hear them congratulating each other. He suffered from mental health issues, including schizoaffective and bipolar disorders. However, they stressed that they did not believe the issue was Root's mental health, but rather the way the police behaved after the chase, saying reforms were needed to help prevent unnecessary deaths. He was bleeding and unarmed when he exited his car after he crashed in Brookline. She said that footage showed an emergency medical worker running to help her brother shortly before he was shot, saying that this showed that he was not a threat to police. Prosecutors say that Root misled police at the scene outside of the hospital, including claiming to be an officer. He was also with law enforcement before drawing what appeared to be a gun. He brandished a weapon that was not Authorities say he brandished a weapon that was not a working firearm, and the valet was shot by a police officer. So he had gone to see a therapist that day at Mass Health facility. But it said that he pulled what appeared to be a gun from his waistband and aimed it at the officer, prompting a confrontation between the two that led the officer firing his gun and a struggle between the pair on the ground, said Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey. So he had been to see a therapist that day. Evan Root said that he believed his son had the delusion of being a law enforcement officer at the time of the incident. I'm sure he thought that he was helping the situation, adding his son was a very kind and sensitive boy. Root's sister added that he likely was scared and confused during the incident. He led them down a chase that ended in him crashing with several other vehicles. He escaped the wreck, but when confronted by several officers and told to surrender, he was fatally shot. According to Michael Morrissey, Root's Chevy Volt managed to lose the chasing police officers as it weaved through traffic and reached 90 miles per hour shortly before he wrecked. Officers' commands for Root to show his hands and lie down on the ground are heard on body camera footage and police radio transmissions and corroborated by bystanders. Several officers said that they saw Root reach for what appeared to be a weapon in a holster on his shoulder, and a witness saw him reach inside his coat before shooting as well. However, Root's sister argued against that claim, saying that he had nothing in his hands. They did not see a gun. Jennifer Root Bannon showed a photo that she said showed a gun police said had been found with Root at the scene of the fatal shooting. She said the gun was not the same as the replica gun that was seen outside of the hospital. And she said, "I'm not saying it was planted. I'm just saying I can't say that Justin actually had that gun. They said it was underneath him." Root's sister said audio from the scene revealed that the officers congratulated each other after shooting him 31 times while he was on the ground. It felt sick. It seemed heartless. Root was pronounced dead soon after the shooting. His body was later found to have 26 bullet wounds, according to Morrissey. The weapon he had was a black semi-automatic BB pistol. Root's vehicle was also found with 2 paintball guns. The officers were cleared by Morrissey within 30 days. So, interesting. Somebody sent me that one. So, Boston getting wild, y'all. Morrissey. I should say Morrissey getting wild. Get him! Skid him! Skid him! Tell him! So ferocious. All right. Okay, so don't forget tomorrow. Don't forget tomorrow. Me, Broken Baker, Valhalla. Yeah, Lucy's on duty. She's on patrol. K9 unit. K9 unit. Who did I say? Who did I get to? Me, Broken Baker, Valhalla Waits, Melanie Little, and Runkle will all be on panel tomorrow. I'll put the link in here one more time. Hit notify me so that y'all can come hang out with us. It'll be a good time. Some of my favorite folks. And Young Jerks. Did I say him? Who did I miss? Mike's nice. I've been on Young Jerks a couple times. They're always really good to me over there. I don't know. I think I missed one person the first time and one person the second time. Click the link. We're all on there. It's my friends. Me and my friends. Runkle. I missed Runkle the first time. See, I miss everybody sometime. All right. I'm going to go rest a little bit. I feel like crap. So I'm going to hopefully take a nap and then wake up and work on the... podcast episode. So I will see y'all tomorrow for the panel for Broken Baker. I'm not going to say the other ones because every time I say it I forget somebody. It's on there. Click the link. Hit notify me. And then if you're a loser and don't show up there, that's fine. Just joking. None of you are losers. You're all winners in my heart. But if y'all can't make it tomorrow night, then I will see you on Thursday when we are back for the full day. K9 units. Own it, doggone it. And I guess maybe we'll finally get to the medical examiner. Maybe. Possibly. It is tomorrow at... I don't know. It just says... Oh, it's 7 p.m. 7 p.m. my time. 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So, all right, y'all. I appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out with me. Oh, Melissa Ann missed the last hour. We'll just sit here for another hour with you so that you can have time to catch up. I'm just joking. I don't feel good. That's why I'm going to bed. I will see y'all either tomorrow on the panel or I will see you Thursday for court jury duty. Don't forget. Yeah. Thank you. Feel better. I will. I'm going to go rest. All right. Love y'all.
Yeah, I gotta go. I can't stick around here forever.
Everybody was wonderful. Everybody behaved. Everybody's always so nice to me.
Just love your channel and
Good morning.
Goodbye, good people. Now, how the heck do I get out of here?